I don't know, and I'm not going to go into any discussions about what happened in the past teams, but I know that there's always two sides to a story, right? And if there was that many problem, I don't care what the rest of the Finns say. The other guys must have done something shitty too. Like, it's not only one person at that point, right? So I talked with Elo in one-on-one. I talked with Saw. I talked with the organization.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Headshot, nice. Fist bumps go to the teammates. I wanna hear your go, go, go. I wanna see you falling fast. Win the round. Win the game. Pretty much.
Season 5, episode 32, HLTV Confirmed. We're back again for another episode. First and foremost, let us mention the sponsors, the ones who make all this possible. We've got Xtrfy, that is xtrfy.com. That's for all your peripheral needs. And the new boys that we got on the block, that is PariMatch. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I'll spell it, PARI match.com. Gamble responsibly, all of that stuff. You guys can go to the website so you can check it out. And thank you again for supporting the show. On tonight's show, we got Snappi in the hot seat. We got the recent news, not too much there this week yet again, and all things ESL Pro League. Let's make this one quick because I think we're going to have a lot to dive into here tonight. Lucas, we've got you as the producer as per usual. Say hello to everyone, Lucas.
Hello, guys.
Okay, good. They know that Lucas is still alive, not being held against his will. Everything's fine over there. The highlight of the show for me, and this is no offense to Snappi, but this is, I don't know if you've seen this segment, Snappi, but this is the best segment of the show. It's called Striker's Dating Profile. And what we do is we ask Striker questions to build a dating profile. So Striker, I've got you a good new one here today. Okay. You ready for this one?
Let's go.
This one's going to be a hard one to answer, and I really was digging towards the bottom of the barrel here of questions. Who is the most fascinating person you've ever met?
Fuck, that is really hard.
Not an easy one. Might have to put a timer on these things as well. We got the clock going. Dun, dun,
Man,
dun,
I have
dun,
no
dun,
idea.
Dun, dun, dun. Have you met s1mple?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's.
He's the
that's
most fascinating person anyone's gonna meet. Let me tell you that much. He's playing Valorant right now. But have you got anyone, Strike? You got anyone at all?
Yeah, for certain reasons, Peter from HLTV.
Okay, there you go. Pandering to one of his bosses. It's a good answer. It's not going to go far in a dating profile. You're going to have to explain to the person who Peter is, but we'll note that one down. Whoever's building the profile, add that one. We'll keep it moving. We'll keep it rolling. This is another segment that I'm going to be crowbarring in every week. It's called Prof's Corona Watch. Prof, any new outlooks this week, or are we in the same boat?
Yeah, I'm getting like information from the ground in Germany. There's going to be a lockdown.
Yeah, it's fucked.
Yeah, that's what I heard from a guy called Sponge. I don't know if you know him. Kind of cool, kind of a douchebag at the same time. Balancing the two things out. But yeah,
it's possible.
That's what I know. That's kind of fucked. And I know like Riot is having some issues with their like League of Legends stuff, but I think they'll actually be having LAN playoffs or not LAN playoffs. I don't know what they're doing. Something's going on there. And Iceland is, of course, also fucked. Even
on
though
fire.
It's literally burning volcanoes over there. So they don't have COVID. They just have volcanoes. So it's like, I think that's better. Maybe. I don't know.
All right, well, that wraps up Prof's Corona Watch for the week. Now, without any further ado, let's get this one going. Lucas, roll the bumper. Let's get into the hot seat. All right, we're back and we're into this one nice and fast. Tonight we have Story Danish in-game leader going all the way back to the 1.6 days. I remember watching you, Snappi. Being on teams like Heroic, Optic Gaming in more recent times on ENCE version 3.0, I guess we can call it, the international edition. Snappi, thank you for joining us, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a good couple of weeks. Had some off days, so I'm just relaxed and in a good mood today.
That's good to hear, right? Because we're going to be digging into a lot of things tonight about, well, mostly the last year of Counter-Strike for you, where I'm sure you probably weren't in a great mood a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I reckon we dive straight in because, as I said, we do have a lot to dig into here, and I'm sure you got a lot you want to say about the stuff that's happened over the last year. So let's pick this up. After the Heroic FPX situation, we'll focus in on the Tiger stuff. Just for those people who aren't too familiar there, you were in about May of last year, you were linked with s1mple to be going over to Tiger, which was a Mongolian organization with Urcast. I think it was Dobu, if I remember rightly, or what, Cabal maybe as well. And that came as a massive surprise to everybody. First of all, let's start there. You kind of get tossed abroad, and this is the offer that comes your way. How did this all come about?
It was actually a few different offers, but this one was kind of different. And just to one note that people probably didn't get back then was the fact that I wasn't going to be living in Asia. They were going to come to Serbia.
Okay.
And that was one of the main reasons, because I wanted to kind of revitalize my career at that point, try something different, right? I'd only been in Danish teams at that point. So I just wanted to try out something new. I knew s1mple was obviously very talented but I think everyone can kind of see that. And I felt like this was kind of a chance to bring a Asian team to the like top 20 potentially. And if I could do that, that would kind of be a good show off as an in-game leader to be able to do that. So a lot of people obviously thought it was a money offer, but it actually was not. It was chosen because I felt like there was some possibilities, and I think, I obviously watched the team a lot, and they were playing terrible Counter-Strike, but they had skill. So I felt like it would, if they had good work ethic, which I would suppose if they were willing to move to Serbia. I figured, okay, maybe you can actually do something with this and have s1mple as a very skilled star player in the roster, right?
Okay. Yeah, a couple of risks to be taken there, right?
Yeah,
Urcast,
obviously a few.
I'm quite familiar with Urcast because of his time in Australia and stuff. He was on Renegades for a while there, and then he had to obviously move back to Mongolia for whatever reason. Which of the players on that roster, just out of curiosity, had piqued your interest the most? Because you're right, they are skilled. I had to play against them for a lot of my career. They can shoot heads, but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of depth. You must have had a massive task ahead of you if you were going to take that on.
Yeah, and it obviously wouldn't be an easy task, and I also didn't know if I would have been successful doing it, to be honest. But I think if you have a good work ethic, you're gonna go pretty far. So if that was kind of down from them, then I think you could, if they were in the right spot in Europe, maybe they could get into potentially FPL because they were traveling from Asia at that point, right? Maybe their involvement would maybe their progress would be faster than what would be expected, right? Putting them into a new system, kind of learning them a lot of the basics. Obviously, I know that they're not completely brain dead. They probably also kind of knew some of it already, but at the same time, I watched some of their demos and they did a lot of rookie mistakes, right? So I felt like it was a team that could be like changed for the better very fast.
Okay, cool. Prof, Strike, you got anything on the Tiger stuff before we move into Contact?
Yeah, I guess in the end, it just kind of fell apart because of the Corona situation, right? Or was there any changes? Because they
Actually,
also
it wasn't that reason that it fell
Yeah.
apart. The reason it fell apart, and also I forgot to answer the question. Yeah, like I think this Dobu guy was pretty good. I think that was the original question from chat. But no, it wasn't because of Corona. It fell apart because there was already arrangements about going to South Korea and playing from there for the qualifiers. Then they would come back to Serbia, which was at that point open. I don't know, but back then it was pretty open to everyone entering it. So there was, it wasn't that was the reason. The reason was that they started doing so good in Asia. So suddenly they won. I think some of these major. I think they won the first major qualifier.
Yeah.
They had so many points, which meant that if they removed 2 players, there was such a little gap between first and second place and third place. So if they lost 40% of their points by doing 2 roster changes, their chances of getting enough RMR points, because there was only 1 spot to Asia, was so low that they decided that the major was so important for them to stake us all that they felt like they wanted to give this roster a further chance now that they were doing so good in Asia. So that was actually the main reason it didn't happen.
Yeah, and additionally, they won the first RMR. The Asia didn't have the second one, and Australia didn't have the second one.
Yeah.
So they only had 1 more. So yeah, when you take that into account, you essentially have to win the last one. Otherwise, it's like
Yeah,
no chance to
the thing
qualify.
was, like, as far as I remember, even if we won the rest, it wouldn't even be certain if a team like ZywOo would just place second.
Yeah.
If you take a look at it now as well, Tiger are no longer a team. So I think the casters over there over NG, is that the one with impression and stuff? Anyway, Southeast Asian Counter-Strike, that one's a bit of a mystery to most of us. Strike, you got anything, or you want me to jump into contact?
Let's go into contact. I think this Tiger thing obviously didn't happen, so not too much to talk about.
Would have been one of the most interesting crossovers I think we've seen in some time if it did happen, but maybe in a couple of years we might see one of those
up
moves.
there with the Splice, right?
Yeah.
Also Mongolian and Dane and I don't know who
That's
else.
right, Machine Gun, right? Geez, all right. There's been some odd rosters out there, but I suppose this next one, and this is where we're going with this into contact, not necessarily an odd roster. In June of 2020, Snappi, that's when you joined Contact over there with Ships, Esperanto, Otto, and Emmy. So that's the team that you joined with, and there was also, I believe, Neil M as the head coach, and then DJ L, the Swede, was also there as a coach when you joined. So that offer right there, was that just because you just mentioned about wanting to go a different direction in your career? Was this more into that? You wanted to really give that international team a shot?
Yeah, it was an international team. And they obviously, I think everyone could see that player by player, they all had potential. They had from the start. I didn't really get to work with them too much before, like I think after the player break, because we had like 2 weeks from I joined, and then there was player break for 5-6 weeks. And yeah, it was a weird experience, to be honest. That team, I think it wasn't really anyone's fault, all the stuff that happened. I think I just joined the team too late in a way. I think the team had already, like, there was a lot of problems that probably wasn't solvable even when I joined. So I think they had been a roster for almost a year at that point, and I think it was just a hard team to thrive in for everyone. And it was one of those projects where I think it had probably run its course. There was just too many problems, to be honest.
Sure. Strike, you want to jump in here?
Well, you guys went through something like 3 more changes within like the first month of you joining that team. So, like, did you expect that coming into the team, or did that just happen along the way and you just realized, okay, I just basically joined the dead team? What happened there?
I think the problem was that it was a team where I think there was some, like, there were a lot of small issues, and then I think kind of like if you have a team where one guy doesn't really want to sacrifice for the next guy, then at one point it's just going to be a lot of solo CS, and nobody's really willing to do the dirty job. And I think Contact was an example of a team where it had just gotten to the point where nobody was really there to put in the extra effort for the teammate next to him. And like, I really won't go into any blame game here, because I think it was a combination of everyone, and I think it's probably better for everyone to go their separate ways and play in different teams, because I think like some of the players there, like, they are obviously very, very skilled players, but I think the players together as a full mix probably wasn't the best.
Okay, maybe the personality's not meshing there, because it's obviously difficult to talk about these things, right? But we all know there's certain players who you hear through the grapevine and stuff that they're difficult to work with, or maybe and that kind of stuff. I'm definitely not putting you in the place to air any dirty laundry, but it must be difficult coming into an environment where things already seem like they're broken, right? As a leader coming into that, what are you meant to do? Like you can only bring so much, right? If we look at the tail end of Contact for you guys, the last match, if I'm reading rightly here, was in December last year versus FaZe. At that point, the roster had Spinx and Rigon in there. Now, obviously, when we move into the ENCE conversation, we can talk a bit more about Spinx. But that team that you had there, those names, as you mentioned, all of them have skill that is worth something. Do you think that those players? I think Rigon's probably one. He's from. I'm terrible. That's the one. I'm terrible at European countries. I was going to say something stupid. It's where Maniac's from, isn't it? And then Esperanto, Otto, Spinx. Yeah, we'll talk more about. But those names, do you think they're going to have trouble finding a place in teams to play within the top 30? Like, or are they individuals who just can fit into a squad that's predetermined, and you think they can find success? What's your opinion on some of the names?
No. I think definitely all of the guys in the team could definitely do that. I think people just needed a new playground, a new a fresh of some fresh air in a new team. Pretty much, I think. I think every player in that team had potential. The coaches. I think it was just a matter of, like, as I said, the team had just run its course, and I think everyone was kind of hungry for a fresh start in a way. And so I don't have any beef with any of the players or anything. And I think everyone with the right roles, because everyone in that team definitely couldn't play all roles, but if everyone was put in the right role for them as a player, I think everyone could certainly play in a top 30 team.
What about from a coaching perspective? Because we mentioned Neil M and we mentioned DJL. I think I saw DJL's gone to Copenhagen Flames as the coach, maybe some Danish team. But the question here is, because the coaching role is one we never really hear a lot about. Like, with that setup, they're having two coaches going over to contact. Was it like they were the bosses and you were the in-game leader, and you guys like had your little 3-man brain trust, or like what were these guys like to work with from that standpoint?
I think it was about like I think Neil M is like a hype coach in a way. So I think he's a guy which will certainly work better in a lane environment, right? Where he can kind of be behind you and stuff like that. And then I think DDL was brought more in as the tactical coach. So they would kind of have two areas to focus on. Like in normal sports, you would probably also have like certain coaches, like you have coaches for the keeper, for the attackers, kind of, right? And
Sure.
I think it was more a matter of having strengths in different areas, and that's why both of them were there.
What about the flashpoint spot, right? Did that act as like a motivating factor that you guys knew that was always going to be there, or was it more like we have that, so it made it harder to prioritize other events, or what are the implications of having that spot?
I think it was good to have that spot. It was something to look forward to. Obviously, we at that time everyone thought, okay, maybe LAN is coming back soon. There's gonna be a bubble in London, whatever. Like people, like before, everyone was whining about traveling too much, and now everyone is whining about staying at home, right? So
Yeah.
I guess when it eventually gets back, I hope not everyone gets on the wine train regarding having travel days. But yeah, it was something to look forward to. Obviously, I prefer playing ESL or basically where the best teams is. I don't care what the tournament name is. I just want to play the best teams. But obviously, Flashpoint, huge prize pool, good production. It was also a good thing to be a part of, and it's definitely something that is very important for a team to have in order to. Like these days, like it's not necessarily the best teams that are in top 20. It's oftentimes just the teams with invites. Because if you just do, like, let's say you are a Blast partner team, right? You do absolutely no results, but you progress from a group of 4 where there's 2 spots. Suddenly you get enough points from that Blast tournament because all the best teams are there. You're in the top 20, even though you probably wouldn't even be in the top 30 without that event spot. So it is a big factor to have those spots these days. Very big factor.
You think a few of those names are going to get found out soon, with like Katowice being an example, with like the play-in situation there? Do you think that with more events like that, we can see what you're talking about here in live environments?
I don't know, like with the online, it's obviously also different. If like results are a lot more random right now online, I think definitely there is a big chain. Like there is a difference between players on LAN and online. But with that being said, I think like the top is a lot more tight than people think, and some of these top teams that are being built aren't as good as people think they are. But obviously they have the chance to play the good team straight away, where the other teams have to fight like Gambit, who are obviously a good team. People can see that now for one spot in a tournament, right? And then obviously a lot of good teams who could potentially have gone out of groups, progressed from groups, are not even going to be in the tournament, right?
Sure.
But I mean, I can also understand why it is that way with the economics and teams and all this stuff. So it's not like it's kind of a tricky question to solve fully,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's the thing with the open circuit versus more of these invites and stuff. I was actually like just taking a look at that mouse sports result, for example. If people were catching it, they're playing in the Fantasy Expo, which is a blast qualifier, I believe, and they lost to, is it Double Pony? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that
I don't know
meant to be? It's probably
I
some
think
French pronunciation.
I've seen people call it double pony, so I guess.
Yeah, so like, and that's like, there's all these slots and all these different regions around the world just to play in the showdown, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, with some of the teams who, this is the thing with these partner teams who are all over the shop, wherever you are. Like, if you're going to have bad results, eventually, surely there has to be like an out for these TOs, so they're not just carrying dead weight that don't bring anything. Anyway, we'll save that one for playtime.
I mean, they still bring viewers. So I think the team that we talked about like last week or the week before that was EG. I think they're like a super big example of what Snappi is talking about right now. They literally played, I don't know, like 5 series, I don't know, maybe 8 series since October, lost 50% of them, and they're like number 14 just because they won against a couple of these very good teams. And that's what really keeps you in the top 20. It's hard to fall out of that.
Yeah. Well, and we know that Endpoint is another one of those names, who's battling just for a top 30 spot, right? And then that was to open up invites. So like, yeah, we've seen plenty of that. Prof, you got anything here on the contact stuff before we move into the easy for ENCE?
Maybe I can just ask. I want to ask about Rigon because we touched on all of these players and all of them looking for new homes, stuff like that. Esperanto, Otto, we kind of know from the crazy era. But what is, if we are giving out like a shop window for Rigon for all of these teams that are maybe looking for someone new, what is he like as a player? Where can he fit in, right?
I think he's a very aggressive player. I think you have to use him as an entry fragger. I think he's kind of a mood player, so you have to put him in an environment kind of where he can, where there's stability around him, and also some experienced guys that can learn him some stuff. Because I think the main thing was that you could feel that he wasn't used to Team CS in the sense that he needs to get better with grenades and also not overpeaking. But those are two things that is probably pretty easy to fix if you put him with the right people. So I think he has a huge upside in a team where you just need some firepower and you're going to teach him the rest. Because if he is in a team where he sees that the other players, what they are doing, okay, they don't miss this, okay, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, these 1 to 2 months, he got a lot better at it. So it's not like there wasn't any progress. So I think he just needs stability around him, 1 or 2 older guys that can teach him a few things, and then just really the basics, because he comes from FPL and you can see that he comes from FPL. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You just need to shape him, and it's also a possibility to mold the player into exactly what you want, right?
Sure, and I think that can take us right up to this ENCE conversation here, because that works perfectly. So we're just a little bit on Rigon. Now let's talk about ENCE, and then we'll get into Spinx. So we all know that Alu came on this show, then everything went to shit. Well, actually, to be fair, everything already was pretty shit at ENCE. It was falling apart. It felt like they were just struggling to keep the wheels on. The car was going. The Finnish fans were still waving their flags, but it was clear that something wasn't quite right within the team. Then the Alu situation happens. Everything kind of falls apart, and then the organization is looking to rebuild. They come knocking on your door. How enticing is it after everything that just happened for you to go for a change like this? Was it like, oh yeah, I can fix this, or what was the offer like?
I don't know. I was actually very surprised this off season because I received a lot of offers, good offers. But I felt like this ENCE offer was very intriguing because obviously I think Elo is a very, very underrated AWPer. I think he has always been a tier 1 AWPer. And like, to me, there's always 2 sides to a story, because I've been blamed for stuff in the past where I'm the guy that really don't speak like in the public that much if someone is blaming me for stuff, but I've been blamed for certain things where like I wasn't really like the guy who made the decision or whatever. But then I was like other people will like cover their back and say, oh, it's that guy's fault, and then I haven't really spoken out on it. And I think I don't know, and I'm not going to go into any discussions about what happened in the past teams, but I know that there's always two sides to a story, right? And if there was that many problem, I don't care what the rest of the Finns say. The other guys must have done something shitty too. Like it's not only one person at that point, right? So I talked with Elo in one-on-one. I talked with Saw. I talked with the organization, and I kind of got a feeling of who they were, how they were, and like me and Elo get along very good on a social, like just as people outside of the game, and like. So that was a big factor to me, and I don't really want to dwell on the past. I also think it's a learning experience for someone who goes through a crisis like that, both as an org and as a player. You have to look towards yourself at that point. Hope both of all of the players in that situation and the staff or whatever did that, and then you live and you learn, kind of, right?
Sure.
And I think from my experience, ENCE has been nothing but good to me, and so far I'm getting along with Elo amazingly, and I can't see why it would end, because me and Elo are very straightforward in the sense that we talk to each other as soon as a problem arises. So if I think something was annoying during a prac, I call him straight away. We talk about it. Then we find a middle ground, and we explain to each other why I reacted or he reacted this way. But that's not only Elo. I think that should be no matter who we are in the team, we should be able to have that, which is also why we have a sports psychologist in order to keep speaking openly about what irritates you. Because when you spend 40 hours a week practicing, you will get fucking annoyed at some people. That's just how it is. So we have to have that kind of space where we have 2 hours at the end of the week. We talk about whatever happened. It could be positive, but there will also be some negatives. And I think it's important that it's voiced so it doesn't grow any bigger.
But that's what we always talk about, right? When people hear us talking about honeymoon periods and this, that, and the other, a honeymoon period is like when a team first comes together, everybody's on their best behavior, right? So when you die, you know, the way that you communicate, it's still like peppy. It's not with that fucking that last breath that comes out where you sound mad because your teammate accidentally team flashed you or jiggle peeked away from an angle and then you died, right? And what you're talking about here is the long-term way to keep a honeymoon period is just by being honest with people, which seems to be such a difficult thing. But do you think now this difficult and maybe I shouldn't even pose you this question, but fuck it, because I'm sure you played with a lot of young players yourself as well. Do you think maybe the generational divide could have been a problem with old ENCE, or do you think it can be a problem now with the younger kids, these 18, 19, 20-year-old young fraggers? And I don't want to call you old by any means, but you're an old boy like me. Like I'm 31, you're 30, you know, like, do you think that the age may have played a factor in ENCE's demise? Do you think that's been a factor in some teams that you've experienced?
No, not really. I think it's just unspoken problems grows
Okay.
bigger, pretty much. And I think it was something, and I think this is also one of the reasons why Astralis have done so good long term, right? Because it was the sports psychologist back then in Heroic, the first version. We got the guy that was called Lars Rubbel, who is now for Astralis, but he was our sports psychologist, and he brought in this. Basically at the end of the week we would have a talk and speak about things, and I think it's very important to have that in teams, and basically have a guy sports psychologist who is objective and who's just going to sit on the sidelines and control the conversation in case it should get out of hand. It rarely does, but in case, right, then you have this guy that doesn't really take any side. He's just there to be kind of the level-headed guy in a discussion who could go off, right? But I think this is how you kind of keep, as you said, the honeymoon. And I don't think, as you like, this age divide, it shouldn't really be a problem, because in football, you obviously have the veterans, and you have players that goes from 17 up to like 40, And like there's a much bigger age divide than there is here in CS at the moment. Maybe, hopefully, I'll be old enough to create that divide, but for now it's not that big, right? So I don't think that should have been the problem. I think it's just unspoken problems.
Sure.
But again, I wasn't in the team, so I don't know exactly what happened, and I don't really want to dwell too much on it, as I said.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
go for it, Striker.
No, can you just take us through like the building process? Because obviously it's a big change that ENCE went through, just keeping 2 players. The rest were just changed. So how involved were you with choosing the new players, maybe choosing the old ones, whether somebody stays or not? What was that process like?
I was contacted by Doto, and asked about different players and stuff like that. And they were pretty set already from the start on me and dycha. We were like the first options, the first guys they asked. And then there was one last guy that was going to be part of the team, and it was kind of between mainly Spinx and TMB. And I spoke highly actually about both of them, because at that point we didn't know if dycha wanted to come yet, so we kind of had to keep the options open. But TMB went to Mad Lions, and because he wanted to join a Danish team. And then there was Spinx that I spoke highly about from contact, because I felt like as soon as he got the chance to play on lower ping, like his work ethic, his mentality is one of the best I ever had. Like, the guy can't get mad, and he just sucks everything in the sense that, like, he just tries to learn every single day and get better and better and better. And I think a guy like that will just progress fast, and he's just a good guy to have on your team speak at all times, because he never creates problems, and everyone is kind of chill around him, because he's just, that he's not going to cause any problems, really.
Okay.
I think everyone in chat thinks you said Dosia, and instead of like the Polish guy, dycha.
So
Yeah. How's it
meant to be pronounced?
I don't even know what you say.
We say dycha, but that's because it's easy to say while casting.
Yeah, that's probably correct.
I think Kuban also called him that on the last show.
It's his last name.
I don't know. I call him Pavel normally, but I mean.
Okay. Well, we are talking about dycha now. He's been a bit of a monster. But before we dig into more of the player specifics, there was something that was brought to my attention regarding ENCE. And it was with the GM, an interview that HLTV did. I'll link it to Lucas so he can bring it up for everybody. And we can show this, and you guys can have a read at home if you want. Where are you at, Luke? Sorry, everybody. There it is. Now, one of the excerpts from this article with Nicholas, I won't even attempt. Actually, I will attempt to say his last name. It's Finnish. Ojalanen. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, he's the GM
Sounds
of
very
ENCE.
Finnish.
Yeah. And one of the quotes here says, now the final call always belongs to s1mple, who discusses with me the decisions that are made about the team. This is what happens in every sport. In esports, there are teams that already have this structure, and I think that's the way we have to move to build more professional teams. That was the quote, obviously talking about the shit that happened in the past, obviously moving forward. Now, with that, we know that s1mple was the in-game leader of Havu, so he's over there at ENCE now as the coach, even just joining as all the mess kind of went down. But with you joining this team, was that how it was presented to you? s1mple the head honcho, and you always like how's that whole situation working?
Yeah, I mean, we call him the big boss.
Okay.
Yeah, he is the boss. Obviously, I as an in-game leader have more say also on how we play, but I think everyone in the team is kind of equal. I think s1mple is he's the guy you have to fight if you really want something. No, he's definitely the boss. He's the one who will eventually say if something goes or not, if we don't agree in the team.
Okay.
So yeah. And that's how it should be, because he is the objective guy. We all acting on feelings a lot as players, right? We're in the game, as you said. Teammate flashes you think he did a mistake, he thinks you peaked too early, whatever it could be, right? Then it's good to have a guy who's actually really, really smart. He's been the in-game leader of Havu. They have a very good basis in that team, and I think obviously they're doing really, really good now, and that's not him. But I think he laid a lot of the groundwork for that to also happen.
Okay, cool. Prof, you want to jump in here with anything?
Not really. Oh,
All
I'm
right.
just following chat, people talking about dosia. Also, just imagining dosia playing in ENCE.
It would be quite the experience, wouldn't it? That Dosia, Snappi, Alu, we'd be rocking quite the club. There'd be a lot of old boys in there.
I think that would be called old boys at that point.
But if we go back to talking about some of the players, right? Obviously, you were just talking about Spinx and your experiences with him and the type of player he is. I watched this. We can put this one in chat for everybody too. ENCE do some really good content. This new one that got released, I think it was either this morning or yesterday or something. I'll put it in Twitch chat for everybody. It's called ENCE TV. This one is Behind the Scenes New Beginnings. And in this, I was watching, and one of the interesting things about dycha, he was talking about like how there's a bit more spotlight on him and how people are nice and they're sending him messages and they like the way he's playing and stuff. He seems like a really genuine, like fun guy. Like what type of guy is dycha? Because in terms of fragging, he's a monster, but like what type of personality are you getting out of him?
He's a quiet guy, but a very nice guy. And when he opens up more, you kind of see more of the real guy in a way. I think he likes playing in the team, and I think everyone loves playing with him. He's a guy who never really whines or anything. He just does whatever he does on the server, and then that's pretty much it. He just very easy to play with because you know that you're always going to get a high level from him, and you also know that he's a guy whenever he does a mistake, or if he haven't had the best game, he kind of points the finger to himself in the sense that he will try to work harder, try to improve. What did he do wrong? What did so it's not a guy that you need to. You can obviously guide him and help him, but in the end, I think he's a guy who will slowly progress by just doing a lot of the work himself. And it's always nice to play with players like that.
Sure. Holding himself accountable. The other boy in this mix is Doto, right? And from the games that we were casting and watching, he looked like a very handy support player to have, but he also was quite handy in clutches, you know, being a little bit cheeky with certain sound cues and stuff like that. And I feel like Doto, out of everybody, him and Saw, have felt like they got the roughest end of the deal. They just made the move and then the team imploded. Here's another one who I'm curious about, just from my own personal, notes when I'm talking about the team. What is he as an individual for the squad? Because in terms of firepower, he wasn't picked up for ENCE originally because of that, right?
I think he is underrated, yeah, but I think he has underrated firepower. I think he's a guy who will always do whatever the team needs, right? He's a guy who you can trust on playing his spot correct, no matter what you give him. And I think in general, he's just a guy you can rely on him on some of the tougher spots to learn them and to fix them. And also, he's good with nades, which is like, it's always important to have a couple of these guys that kind of know every nade. Like, you ask them something, can you do this? Yeah, I know it. All right, perfect. And I think it's good for a guy like Saw because he likes to just randomly find a pistol for games, right? And then suddenly we have to run a pistol we haven't necessarily ran before, but then me and Doto just kind of have to throw the smokes that are super random at times, but most of the time one of us at least know them. And I think it's important to have a guy like that to build the entire team. But at the same time, I don't think he's like a full support player by any means. I think he's a strong player that definitely also have certain positions where he can shine, and I think he also have a few of them where he thinks that like here he can really have some big impact. And I think some of the games we played in Pro League, he also showed that he can win games for us.
Sure. All right, boys.
Seems like a type of player that you missed in contact from how you described it.
Yeah, probably true. Yeah.
We got anything else on the ENCE stuff before we move into the next one, Striker Prof?
Are we talking about Pro League next?
You've got here. This I was going to throw you this hand grenade. You've written Snappi's blueprint for each of the top 20. I was going to throw that one your way, Prof.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like just thinking about heroic teams in the past, even the heroic, I feel like with Katie and did it even after you left, was one thing that they often did was just like practice very hard in the off season and start playing early, playing these first qualifiers like fully prepared before other teams and kind of catching people off guard and then surfing that wave into like the top 20. And you've been pretty good in being consistently there, always like playing these tournaments, competing against the best, maybe not winning the big titles, but yeah. And now with ENCE, it's kind of like the results look similar. You haven't been playing much, played a couple of tournaments, and now on TPL you deliver. So was that a similar kind of approach that you had to kind of building the team out of obscurity, out of nothing, really? Because ENCE didn't really exist on like 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, I think pretty much most of my teams have always had a pretty good tactical foundation, and I think just by having that, you'll get pretty far. I think the rest that is going to push you is probably the individuals at that point, because if you're competing against the likes of Astralis or ZywOo and Vitality or some of these teams, right, then it's not enough just to have a system anymore. At that point, you also need to just be able to shoot harder. And I think that that is what I hope that we here in ENCE will prove, that we got the last to go all the way, right? But I think you'll get far by just implementing a good system that people can follow. That way you will always, even when you have bad matches, most of the time you'll trade your way out of situations, and eventually you'll get like 7 T rounds, which should be enough a lot of the time, even when you're having a bad T side, just by having people just trade out, go 3-on-3 into after plant. That's it.
I got a curious one just off of what you're talking about there with the fundamentals of CS, and obviously you've been playing the game forever. With the economy change, I should have said this for playtime, but fuck it. With the economy change, do you feel now in Counter-Strike when the scoreline is like 7 or 8-0, if a bunch of those rounds have been close, that scoreline is so misleading? Because I'm sitting there casting games and it looks like a stomp on the scoreboard, and then like one round gets turned, and then obviously the loss bonus starts, and it feels like games just go back to being like 9-6, 8-7. It never feels like a game is over when the scoreline's 8-0 or something like that these days. What do you feel like with that stuff?
No, it definitely has changed CS. I don't know if it's for the better or worse. Probably for the better, actually, because before, if you were behind 8-0, right? Okay, you win one round, you lose, then back to 1400, right? That was when it was getting really, really rough. Now, if you lose a bunch of rounds, you'll just keep being able to buy. So that's why most of the times you rarely see these atrocious T sides where teams get 1, 2, 3 rounds, and that's probably why CS has gotten a bit more T-sided than before, because in the past, even on the T-sided maps, if the CTs had a good start, they could just kind of, completely fuck you over with just winning one round and 1400, right? But nowadays it's just not, and in that sense, it also favors the Ts, right? Because what does it cost? 4,800 to get full AK with all utility, and for CTs it costs what, 5,950 or something like that. So I mean, it favors the T side a lot in that sense if you trade out.
I remember we just had one game, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. Everybody died on the pistol round, but the CTs ended up winning. They fused the bomb and then died after. And then the Ts the next round, I swear to God, it was like 4 Galils and an AK. And I'm like, this is the second round of the game. Well, I know that I'm not playing it in the server anymore, but that's so jarring for me. Do you get caught off guard by that stuff anymore? Or is it now like, oh, fuck, every round's basically a gun round?
No, you don't get caught off guard, but at the same time, that's also why I think force buys is like this. It should be the era of force buys almost, because you rarely see full ecos anymore because you don't get hard reset. So even when people lose a round, they'll still, okay, let's say they have 2,900 money bonus, right? Next round they'll get 3,400, then they'll buy to 1,400 most likely, which means a Tech 9 armor 1150, then you'll buy a smoke 1,450, right? And then you'll be at like 1,450, you can get full utility. So at that point you actually have a pretty strong buy, despite being like mid game, and you like, whereas before you would have Glock no armor, because you would have started at, let's say, 1,400, 1,900, right? You would have started over. So that's also why eco nowadays is not like a good old eco. Like in 1.6, you literally sit behind the wall and just spam people. Like when people were literally choosing spots according to where people went with the ecos, because it was just so fucking easy to shoot them. But nowadays there's almost no easy frags. Of course there is, and you also know kind of when they have it, and that's usually when you'll see someone buy MP9 and just go and hunt them down.
All right, cool. Let's keep this one moving along. Now we'll talk about the EPL stuff. Prof, we're framing. I suppose this is a fair way to frame it here. Now with EPL,
there's a question mark at the end. So
yeah. Well, how do you feel about your EPL performance, Snappi? Because do you think it was an overperformance for where the team was at, considering the group, or do you think that with the amount of time you've had, that this is where the team should be at?
I don't know, really, to be honest. I think we had 3 matches where we played really bad, where we played under our level. But I also think, actually 4. I don't think we played good against ENCE, mouz, nip, and FaZe. And FaZe, there was a reason. And the 2 other matches against G2 and Vitality, we, on the other hand, played the best CS we have played so far.
Okay.
And I think it's hard to say. I don't think we are fully there yet. So we were just happy to go through. And I also think it was a very, very tough group, to be honest. I don't think there was any easy opponents in this group. We were just happy to go through. If it was an overperformance, maybe, I don't know, because the thing was that after the tournament, we talked like I think the only guy who was like, probably Spinx was the only one who played up to his level, I would say. I think everyone else can do better. So in that sense, it wasn't an overperformance. But we ended the group stage with the best round deficit, mostly because of the FaZe game. So we also maybe won some of the games that were tight. That sense. So I think there could be an argument for both. But for me, I think we have more time to improve, and we're definitely not there yet. I think we have a lot of gaps, and I think there's a lot of things we can still fix. And I think that almost everyone in the team can play even better. So I don't necessarily think it was an overperformance, but I guess time will tell, right?
You guys also have played all 7 maps, at least with this roster. Is this the plan, to be a 7 map pool team, or are you going to whittle it down after more time?
No, it's the plan.
Okay.
We don't plan on having a permaban.
All right. Well, whether or not that's true, that's great, because the mind games are started, right? So
No. But I think people have seen that we played all 7 maps, so I don't
Sure.
think I think again in these matches actually we played all 7 maps, so I think people can see that we're not bluffing on that part.
Sweet. Well, I think another big thing, and you mentioned this before, was about the ping of Spinx and him coming over for the boot camp. Has he gone back now, or is he still in Finland?
No, he's still there. He'll stay there for the EPL players. We need that, right? So
Sure. Yeah. Well,
not,
what are we
not
going to
letting him out.
half?
I don't know.
But what's the plan long term on that, though? Because that's really curious, right? Because we've seen what's happened with Woxic, we've seen what's happened with Issa. I'm not sure the exact ping situation for Spinx. I know it's not great. I'm assuming it's very similar. But what's the long-term plan with that? Is it just to hope we go back to LAN events soon, or is it to try and keep him in the central goodness of the European internet as much as possible?
No, I mean, he will, every time we have something important, we'll fly him in. Pretty much. That's how it is. If we have something like, I wouldn't say any tournaments, but like, let's say a tournament that we don't prioritize as much, you'll obviously have some tournaments you play just to kind of the official games going and stuff like that. Play like that, he'll probably play from Israel. But if we have a tournament like EPL, then he'll fly back in.
Sweet.
We were talking about the individual performances and not being up to par apart from Spinx. And I think the one that I noticed in particular was dycha, for sure, just because like in the Sweet Snow tournament, he kind of looked like he used to in Sprout. He was massive. And then he went into Pro League and he kind of faltered. And it was a lot of, you relying on Spinx having his massive numbers in most of the games anyway. And so why do you think that is with dycha in particular?
I don't think that, like, to me, it wasn't that he played bad, in my opinion. It's just that I know that we can get even more out of a couple of us. I think we have, like, in this team, we speak highly about, like, if, let's say, you're not having the best match, then you can contribute in other ways by basically dying for your team, or like basically just doing everything for your team. And in that sense, dycha is, in my opinion, a superstar player without an ego, because he'll just if he's not having the best game, he'll give the AK to his teammate, or he will just jump for him or whatever needed. So I think in that sense we're very, very lucky to have gotten Pavel, because he's just such an unselfish superstar in my eyes.
All right. We got anything else, boys, or should we keep it moving on to recent news?
Just one more thing, just regarding the first match. Obviously, like, you won against Mouse Sports in like the closest way possible, and I think, wasn't there even a comeback in the last map, or am I remembering wrong? At this
Inferno,
point?
right? That's where Snappi was getting fucking pumped. Everybody up.
I think we were up 12-6 on the CT side, and then it got kind of close, and we eventually ended up winning. Was it 16-14?
Yeah. So how important do you think that win was? Because it was still early days into your team. You didn't do particularly well at the first tournament that you played together. So yeah, how important was it to get that first win?
I don't know. I don't think the first tournament was that bad either, to be honest, because like, what did we play? 5 matches, we won 4 of them, and we had 1.5 week of prac.
Right.
3 of the maps we never practiced, 4 of the maps we played a little bit. So at that point, I don't think you can expect much in the tier 2 scene. But against mouz, obviously it was important, but I think the more important match was the NIP match, because we played that match by far worst CS we've played probably. Or at least on 2 of the maps, and we just didn't play good. And after that, we had a talk with our sports psychologist about how we should treat the next matches. Because we did, as I said, I don't think we played good against either ZywOo, mouz, or NIP. But then we had a talk, how should we approach the next matches? And I think the NIP match was the reason we had that talk. And then against G2 and Vitality, we showed up and we played the best CS we have so far. So I don't think the mouz match was that important. I think it was more the NIP match and the performance we put in there.
All right. Prof, you were about to jump in. What were you going to ask?
Yeah, I mean, we were jumping back and forth. I just wanted to ask about Spinx, because it was like the reverse of dycha when we looked at the stats before EPL and at EPL for these two guys. Is Spinx performance at EPL literally just him being on a good ping, or is it the boot? That's it.
I mean, he is a beast. I have no doubt that Spinx is going to stay in top CS for a long, long time. He is just that good. And I think people who have tried playing on 80 ping will realize how big of a difference it is when you get on 20. And he wasn't even bad on 80 ping. That's the whole thing, right? So when he eventually gets to 20, like, it's just a different world for him.
Cool. All right, I think that answers the questions there. We'll save any more snappy questions for the play time. Now let's jump into the recent news. Lucas, you ready? All right, roll it.
The Xtrfy M42 RGB, what a fun mouse with 5 colorways, lightweight frame at just 59 grams with a swappable backplate to suit your grip style, the sensor, the easy core, the smooth skates, and driverless control for RGB and DPI is why you should check out the M42 RGB down below.
Headshot, nice. Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna hear your go, go, go. I wanna see you rolling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Pretty much.
Welcome back. This is the recent news. The news I can give you is young individuals out there, exercise now. So when you get old like me, it's a ritual and you actually do it so you don't have a bad back all the time. That's not the only news, but that's probably the best news we're going to talk about in the recent news section. Hasn't been a lot of recent news. We didn't want to talk about Singularity benching Ramoy because that just happened. We didn't really want to talk about Voivoda being signed by Fiend. But we do have some news out of the
cool news as well.
I guess I don't know who Fiend are, but my point is it's a bloody slow news week. All right, that's the point right there. So we got Brollan extending his contract until 2024. I won't lie, I didn't look into the details. Is there anything juicy, Striker, Prof, anything in here that we should sink our teeth into regarding the
absolutely no details. There's a nice video.
Okay.
They're just nice. You just watch it, and it's like, it's like more pistol kills, and then it's like Brollan. Then more clutches, then it's a clutch from Brollan.
Okay.
And there's like a Krieg spray down from Brollan, like 4 guys. And there's like Sponge commentating or something in it. So it was like nice, but literally no details except massive contract renewal with young Brollan. So I think it's interesting from the perspective of like Brollan, where Fnatic are right now, and like, is he maybe better than what Fnatic are or have been?
Yes.
Or will be for the next 3 years? That I think that's kind of an interesting angle to take at this.
Or if we sandwich that in with the JW and Crims news from a couple of years ago, where they also signed 3-year contracts, which was in early 2019. So they've got 1 year left, I suppose, or another 2 years, I suppose. Wait, no, 1 year left. It seems like it seems like Fnatic like locking their players down for a long period of time. So as you said, I guess the talking points are here. Let's try and find the best way to push these through. Is this a good decision for Brollan? I guess yes, financial stability for the next couple of years. It also kind of smells to me that, well, it doesn't smell to me, but if Fnatic go through one of these transitions like NIP have done in recent years to being more coach focused with the players, you know, kind of coming into a system like, I guess, what ENCE are doing, Astralis, all those kind of names, where it's more top heavy in terms of management and shit, that Brollan may be like the franchise player going forward, because the Crimses and the JWs of the world, et cetera, are going to be turning into the old boys, as we put it, by then. So they might want some fresh blood. So for Brollan there, it makes a lot of sense. But the Fnatic Counter-Strike team is a bit of a mess at the moment, right? Where have they fallen to in the world rankings? They're 17th in the world. We haven't seen too much out of them.
They'll be playing next week, like this week, EPL, right?
Yeah.
That's their next thing.
So I guess we can reserve judgment on what's going on in the team until then. But I overall, I don't know. There's nothing really. This is just overall a good individual decision for Brollan. Striker, do you think it's a good decision for Fnatic?
I mean, for sure, for Fnatic. This is kind of like reminiscent of what Vitality did with ZywOo. It's pretty clear that they just want to build around Brollan into the future, right? Maybe like next year when those 2 guys that we were talking about, JW and Crims, ran out, they're just going to rethink, like, is this the roster that we want to go in with long term still, or do we maybe just want to build around Brollan for the following years, right? So it's kind of like the same as Vitality, just building around your biggest star, building around your like youngest guy who's already like proven and stuff like that. So I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Well, from your standpoint, Snappi, how do you feel about 3-year contracts? Do you think it's something like if someone came to you and offered you a 3-year contract, you'd be down to do it, or is it depending on the org? Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Depends. Like, I think it's gonna lean more and more in the future, probably towards that. I have signed one before that was that long, but in esports, it's also like people are not that often in teams for 3-4 years anyway. Contracts like in CS contracts isn't really a 3-year contracts in the sense that in football, if you sign a 3-year contract, right, you are in like you get salaried for 3 years. It is like that in a few teams, very few, I think. But most of them, the organization pretty much have the possibility to terminate the contract before if something happens. So in that sense, it's mostly in the favor of the player to sign shorter contracts. I don't know what's in the details about Fnatic, but let's say he is secured actually for the full 3 years, then it's maybe not a bad idea from him. Also because as you said, Brollan is probably the guy that they're gonna build around. He's the young gun. He's also their star player, I would say. So for Fnatic, it's a great move to get him locked in. I think it's just sad for Swedish Counter-Strike that we don't get to see him and Plopsky in the team together.
Yeah,
because those 2 are the best Swedish players in my opinion, the young Swedish players, right?
Yeah, Brollan's still 18.
Yeah, both of them are super young.
It's crazy because I remember we when Brollan first joined Fnatic, and I swear there was an event I was doing in China, and his parents were there in the stands. It was like, Jesus, this is crazy. That like when I was that age, yeah, sure, I was playing Counter-Strike, but I wasn't in arena in China. I thought that was pretty cool that a kid, like he has to be one of the first at that age to be in a team that big, right? Like I'm trying to think who else around like a Fnatic level a few years ago was like that. I know Rops was young when he first joined mouz Sports, but it wasn't the same situation as it was then. We won't dwell too long on this
Okay,
one.
maybe.
Yeah, true. That's it. That's yeah. I guess they worked out from the bottom there.
Yeah. It wasn't like a high pressure situation coming into ENCE as it was coming into Fnatic,
Sure.
right?
No, maybe
There's not the
so.
same level of expectations. No, no disrespect to ENCE. Seeing the jersey right now, it's still kind of weird seeing.
It
Snappi
is a
in
bit
an
weird.
ENCE jersey.
Snappy, what's it like with the? This is a tangent, but fuck it, I love a good tangent. What's it with the Finnish fans? Are they just a fan of ENCE, or have they all like migrated to HLTV? What's that like? Do you get much interaction there?
I'm not sure really yet.
Okay.
I think they are a fan of Finnish players in general. So obviously there might be a small divide, but I think most of the Finnish fans, I would guess, is a fan of both teams. Because I don't know.
I guess
It's probably
Alu's a
not.
big name, right?
Yeah,
They've
it's
been
probably
following
not
Ale
like
for years.
football yet, where you like if you're a United fan, you just straight up fucking hate every other Premier League team or whatever, right? I think most of the Finnish fan base is probably just rooting for the Finnish guys, is my guess.
Sure. Yeah. No.
But yeah, we got a lot of support actually by the Finnish fans when coming in.
It looked like there was a lot of people typing Finnish in the chat before. I don't know if they were just copying and pasting shit, but either way, it's a big fan base, right? Because the game that you guys played against HLTV on Finnish only streams, I think it was, had like 33,000 viewers or some shit. I was like, what is going on here? It's like was it a national sport or something over there? It was crazy.
I think there was a lot of storylines in that game, so I think. Yeah, and we might have a rematch this weekend coming up.
Oh, okay. This is a bit more like a soap opera than a Counter-Strike match
maybe.
in some regards. All right, let's get the recent news going. Let's jump into this OG news. OG haven't announced their fifth. The way
There's been a lot of teasing though.
Yeah, well, fuck it. Like you can only blue ball something for so long before you stop giving a fuck. We've all been there. We all
Before
know
you lose the balls just fall
eventually
off.
you just gotta, I'm not doing this anymore, and so I'm like that right now. But at least Niko is officially joined, which I think we can all see is a very good player in terms of his departure from Heroic. I think they're still all surrounded in a little bit of mystery and exactly what happened over there. So I guess on the Danish standpoint here, Snappi, how do you feel about Niko joining OG? How much do you think he brings to this team? Is he gonna give them that extra push? Because they were hovering around that, like what was it, top 6 mark?
I don't think they could have gotten a better player.
Really? Okay.
I think I always said it every single interview. He's one of the best teammates I ever had. I think Alexia also said it. He's an in-game leader's dream. He kind of knows what you're gonna call before you call it in a way. And he's just a very, very good teammate. Don't give a fuck about stats. He is perfect in that sense. Will he be a superstar player? Probably not, but it's not necessarily what they need, right? So I think Niko is the perfect pickup for them. And then they should probably just get a high volume fragger as the last guy.
Okay. Do you have any names?
Yeah. Who do you think that could be though?
Let me go to the free agents list. I don't know who they could get. Like, I also don't know if they're interested in buying anyone out. But
I thought they go a youngster. If I'm gonna be honest, like,
yeah.
I don't know if this is true. Like, this is the thing. I don't know if any of this is true, but I've always heard that OG, like as a brand, sure they're a big brand because of Doto and stuff, but I always heard they don't have a huge amount of cash to be splashing around. It's not like it's not like one of these teams come in and just like slap down the cash on the table and go, yeah, we're fucking taking him, like G2 for example, right? But they must have a decent amount of money. But the thing that I think is why they might go for a youngster is because the Mantu gamble paid off in a big way. Like, I think Mantu is legit considering his story, right? You already have Valda, you already have Alexi, you bring in Niko, you just said he's probably the best player they could have gotten. It feels like you have a stable core now and you could take a risk on another youngster. It's just, I don't know what the scouting ground for that looks like here, because you guys got Spinx. Like, I think Spinx for them may have been a nice pickup, but it feels like it needs to be like actually, you said Rigon was really good aggressively, right? Isn't that the type of player they need to fit? Like, that they need that type, like an aggressive entry fragger replacing Issa?
Yeah, it could possibly be. I think there's a lot of options, and I think that the primary thing for them is how much cash are they gonna splash in a way, and also who is willing to join, because not necessarily, like, even though OG is a big team, it's still not a face, so they probably just can't target anyone who's just gonna accept it straight away. So I think I have a few players in mind, but not
You don't want to
gonna.
give him a secret weapon?
I think they already know a few of them, but I also don't wanna step on anyone's toes, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
what you got any ideas here, Striker?
No, I was just I was just searching for the free agent list again, just because we were talking about this last time, but I'm
Yeah.
really lost. The only one that I remembered we were talking about was Miho.
Sure, I think he's gone to Mad Lions. Like, I think if we're gonna, like,
I
just
guess.
for this, well, I saw something on Kuben's story the other day. It was like he had a picture with Mihu. They both had their cars parked, and on his story, it was something like Mad Lions or trunk, right? Like, because then he's gonna put him in the trunk of the car. So I don't know, but
So
either way,
if Mad Lions don't announce me who
he's
just search Kuben's track. Please do.
Someone
Call the
stop.
Polish police right away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I was talking about this with Machine literally yesterday, or the day before as well, and we were struggling to pick a name that would make a huge amount of sense as just like an entry frag or a more aggressive style name. It's hard to pick. There is a huge free agent list, but it's still hard to pick. It might.
But I
even
don't
be
think
worth it.
necessarily it shouldn't be a free agent only,
Okay.
right? I think there's a lot of other options that might be better. Obviously, some of the free agents could be good, but just like I don't hope the endpoint guys won't kill me for this, but like a guy like Flames would obviously be one of the best choices they could make
Okay. Yeah.
if
Well,
if they can somehow lure him.
we get to
well.
see endpoint tomorrow, not tomorrow, the next day in EPL. So
Also, like if we're talking about organizations and contracts and buyouts, I guess that is a team you could buy a player out. Maybe I'm just completely wrong, but I don't think like Endpoint has like a massive buyout on Flames, right? Especially when he joined, probably didn't really expect to have that much hype around him as much as he does, because literally every chance someone has an opportunity to shout him out, he literally is shouted out by all of the top players just based on FPL and like, I don't know, practices and stuff like that. So yeah.
It's also because it's one of the obvious examples for a pro player when you play with him that you can see the attitude and you can feel both the attitude and the skill level is just so obvious that I mean everyone can kind of see it.
Robin from Endpoint in chat says Flames is very expensive, stay away. So.
All right, well, we'll take that as gospel right there. Let's keep it moving because we have a lot of EPL to talk about. So let's jump into this, and we're going to start with the round robin stuff. We may as well bring up what Striker's done, and then we can talk through everything else. Striker, do you have that tweet handy by any chance?
I can.
I mean, no one will understand anything.
But that's like, fine. He can explain it.
Takes you 10 minutes to like understand what's going on. His explanation. So
we're gonna bring this up. Can you send it to Lucas? And Lucas, you can bring this up for everybody at home. Now we'll go through and we'll talk about formats and stuff. And me and Prof can disagree, but we'll save that because what we'll do is we'll give you all the example of what's happening at the moment. And bring that one up for us, Lucas, when you can. So in the group that is currently still active during Pro League, we've already had groups A and B. We're into group C right now. There is a day break. Oh, why is the day break one day before? Because the day break, it's every Tuesday, guys, every Tuesday. Everyone needs a bit of a break. So that's why we have today off. But looking at this right here, obviously it's around, if you bring it up full screen, the graphic for us, Lucas, Striker, do you want to run us through all of these different scenarios, because obviously the group has found itself in a precarious situation with some of the results. In TeamSpeak, in the main chat.
In the chat as well, yeah. That's the tweet.
Right
I mean, just to explain pretty, like the most simple stuff, FURIA, Gambit are pretty much just playing for first place. That's pretty straightforward there.
Yep.
Literally
Team 1 are out.
Huh?
Team 1 are out, no matter what.
Team 1 and MIBR are out as well.
Okay.
MIBR can actually be in one like scenario that I think like technically could see them through, but they just lose it straight away because of head-to-heads.
Okay.
So MIBR is out as well, and it's just basically the last playoff spot is between Navi and Cloud9, and it's not particularly straightforward. As one winning, he goes through. Second one winning, he goes through either. Yep. They can both win, and one of them goes through. They can both win, the other one goes through. They can both lose, and Navi goes through. So there's still a bunch of different possibilities, but yeah, it's not entirely what I wanted to talk about for sure. I think Prof put it in the topics just because of the clusterfuck that has been around it.
Sure.
with the organizers, and it's something that's been happening for fucking ever, and it's been super frustrating to deal with, just because tournament organizers, especially when it comes to round robin, a lot of the time on the broadcast, it's not super clear what's on the line, right? A lot of the time it will be just like assumptions based on, okay, team 1 went 0-3, so they're out, but there actually was a way that they could still be through at the time. So, and the other way around, somebody's out, but they still say that there's a chance or whatever like that, or they just don't say anything when somebody is out, and that's even worse, I feel like. And so, like, this stuff is something that I feel like should get a lot more priority on broadcasts. And this is not a dig at the ESL in particular. This has happened with other teams as well, with other tournament organizers as well. It's just like such a super important storyline to know whether a team is out or has a chance to be through still, or whenever there's something definitive to learn for the broadcast to make sure that the audience knows. It's literally the most important piece of information that you need to give your audience, whether a team is through or not, if that's the case, right? And so it's just been frustrating with this group, with EPL in particular, just because every single scenario, they were super late on with the information, like, but maybe apart from one.
Yeah, the first one, Group A, there was no dramas, right? That one was clear.
Yeah,
That was very simple. Bang, 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 bang. Group B, your group Snappi, was a little bit more of a mess. Obviously, still there was some things that could have changed. And then with this one here, the most recent one, I think it was. No, actually, it probably would have been towards no, would it have been this one? Or would it have been the end of Group B? I forget. But you boys were getting a bit argy-bargy on the socials. Now,
it was
end of Group B, I think, at the time.
B,
Sure.
Yeah, the
Now,
NIP situation and all of that.
Now, I can't talk to, like, I can tell you that we've had players on this show and we've asked about formats and they have no idea. Remember Flusher? We had him on the show. He said, I just play. He also held an opinion at the same time that all the events felt the same. So that right there, though, it's very difficult for me to hear a player hold those two opinions at the same time, because they directly would solve one of the issues. If you understood the format, then the event wouldn't feel the same. Regardless, that's not the point. Now, in the last year, if you guys watched EPL, it was the desks with me, Henry, and Machine. And then it was me, Machine, and Lauren. And sometimes it was just me and Lauren. But in that event, or in those events, I used the telestrator to show the most likely outcomes, because in certain of these, as you can see by Striker's 8 different scenarios for this group.
It's too complicated to even follow.
If I sat there in a segment explaining it, nobody would listen anyway, right? To be completely fair, nobody would listen. Now, you're right in the sense that it's important for the viewer to know what is on the line, but a lot of the time, the viewer is just watching the Counter-Strike and supporting a team A or B or a player A or B. For them, if they continue through or not, they don't have any idea. I will tell you that probably 90% of the viewers are not aware, and even if they were made aware, would not stop them from viewing the game. But that is here nor there, because the viewers, the hardcore, the people who are watching this podcast, it should be clear. Now, Blast solved it. They had a constantly updated thing available in the green room where somebody, like a League Ops person, I assume it was updating as each game finished in the round robins, so everybody could understand, because that's how their format was, the best of ones, the 6 teams, the round robin, et cetera, et cetera. Now, with this, obviously I can speak intimately to it. As I'm now just commentating, right? Obviously, I'm still more of the analytical side, the color commentary than play-by-play. When these situations are happening and there's games all on at the same time, or there's games with this and that, for me, I step back from that and go, mine is to talk about the game in front of me, right? Obviously, the implications of things are important in certain situations. When they're known, I'll make sure. But if I am not certain and I have not been told from an authority figure, I'm not going to say shit.
Definitely better to shut up. Yeah.
If I say the wrong thing, then I'm the one who's going to look like a fucking tit because I haven't received the right information.
Right.
Now, is it acceptable that the information has not been made clear? No. Should it be known for ESL that that's the case? Yes. Has there been a massive jump up and down internally since then? Yes. Why did this happen again? I can't tell you that answer. If I could give you that answer, a lot of the problems that you guys see and talk about on a consistent basis wouldn't fucking be there, because I'm one of the people complaining about them on a regular basis.
Right.
If you guys watched Katowice, if you would have seen the video that me and Machine did where we VO'd it with the animations, we didn't do the animation, but we did I scripted those VOs, right? Those voiceovers. Alex and I did it in the basement of our home to explain what EPT is, because I'm fed up of standing there on broadcast going, well, the EPT, because it's something that, once again, a lot of the players don't even give a fuck about. Like Snappi probably does, because he's an in-game leader and we seem to care about that shit, where the rest of your soldiers are just like, I headshot, right? Like that's a lot of the time the case. Then we did the explanation for the format at Katowice, because I think it's very important, like you guys do, for the people to know it. Was there meant to be one of those done for EPL, explaining like tiebreaker as well as the round robin group, the different play-in format, the different bracket format? I think all those things are really cool, and there was meant to be one of those. It didn't happen. That's the truth of the matter right there. It didn't happen. Now, for whatever reason, I can't fucking tell you that either. That's outside. That's out of my pay grade right there. You know what I mean? So this confusion and all of this stuff, we can talk about this, because you guys, I know, do not like round robin.
Yeah, but that's not the reason why I'm bringing this up.
No, I understand that. But like, your point is valid. I don't think anybody would argue with that. No one's going to sit here and say,
no, you can't say that we don't like round robin because of this. What happened? Like, this is why we don't. No. It's like the other way around, right? Round robin makes these things happen, and then the TOs need to work hard to make it like less a piece of shit.
I wanted to ask this question, though.
They don't do it, and then this is why we hate round robin, because literally a match finishes and you don't know what it means, and you have to like check 7,000 cases, not 7, but literally up to 16 cases. Oh, does this actually mean this team is out or not? 3-way ties, 4-way ties, resetting the 3-way ties and 4-way ties. It's just bullshit, right?
Well, okay.
It's just, yeah. I mean, what I want to point out is that it's not like I want like people to go over all the scenarios, right? I just want, when there's one that actually eliminates somebody or puts somebody through, or like, I just want there to be information on what's on the line if something definitive happens, if this result happens, right? I don't want for them to just bring up all the fucking 20 scenarios that can happen if this and that and this and that happens, right? I just want the one piece of information that's when it's definitive to be out there, right? And that I think makes sense, just because like the amount of support I've gotten over going over this shit, and that let me tell you, if you don't have a bot for that, it's fucking annoying. It takes a long time to go through.
I have a hard enough time getting the sound guy to play the audio on the out at the right time. Like me getting the information to give you guys as all the matches are changing with round differences and head-to-heads and ties in groups and this, that, and the other. And then there's 2 more matches to happen after this that could affect the direct results of this game. If you think I'm getting that information passed to me while I'm doing my job, having a struggle with the shit that's going on there, and like, Jesus, Joseph and Bloody Mary.
Let's just involve Snappi into this, but before that, I just need to just say one thing, and that is, not all matches are at the same time, going on at the same time. That's only the last day, and for the most of the days, one guy could literally have all the scenarios out, and as the match finishes, just like update you. Now that's
League Ops' job at the company.
Just like it's not.
It's League Ops' job to pass that information through, right? I'll lay the blame. That's what the blame is. That's the blame, right there. The League Ops, right? And it's not Michal Slavinsky. It's not the boy that we love. That's the problem, right there. I can point you the fucking spear. The communication from the admins, the people who make the rules, should be the ones who are on top of that at all times. They should be on social media. They should be doing that. That's as simple as that. There's no 2 ways around it. That's fucking it.
Need to hire that guy, Michal. He used to do it.
He's still hired. For some reason, he's not working on Pro League in the way he should be. Anyway, I've flipped off at enough people about this behind the scenes, right? Like I can only flip.
Let's ask Snappi what he thinks about round robin.
I wanted to pose it this way for Snappi, because we can talk about like what you guys are talking about, which is nonsense. Snappi, if like when what you're saying isn't nonsense. Anyway, I'll get to it.
No, I understand it.
Snappi, with this thing, these groups, would you prefer the option you have now, or would you prefer if the round robin group was literally all 24 teams play everybody, and then we have the top 12 go through?
I would prefer, like, let's say, in this case, we play 5B or freeze, right? I would prefer also to even it out a bit more. That so, for example, Group C and Group D are vastly different in terms of teams, in my opinion. I would prefer that they did like 2 groups of 12 and then just played BO1 instead. But
Really?
with that said, yeah,
Okay.
it won't give more matches. It will just be like a lot more on the line for every match. You play one match on a high level map. It's best of one. You get a even ground. You play, what would it be, 11 best of ones? That's eventually going to be less maps than this 5 BO3s probably anyway. But with that said, I don't necessarily mind round robin. I just think it's the rules that are wrong in terms of how it's decided who goes through.
Okay.
I never really understood this head-to-head. I think that for me, having studied statistics and stuff, like I think it's much more. It makes much more sense to have the teams who did the best mathematically go through, which means that you just first, it's an easy rule set. First, you just go by who won, who has the biggest map difference. It's pretty easy. Everyone can look at it. Okay, this team won 7 maps, this one 6. Like they're +2. Let's say it's one team is 7-4, the other team is 6-5. Okay, 7-4 goes through. Okay, if they're both 7-4, then at that point you just go by round difference. Super simple again. It doesn't need to be that complicated, but instead what's happening is in a freeway tie, suddenly 3 teams go head to head. Then it's only those results factored in, and then everything becomes a clusterfuck. So in my opinion, it's just about simplifying the rules, and then round robin works perfectly.
I have a question with this because I know that one of the critiques that has happened in the past is especially, well, let's just stick with best of 3 and in the format as we have it now. But with the round robin and the round difference that you're talking about, for example, it's not as much these days as it used to be, but one of the things people would say is, oh, like it would be map dependent. So let's say that you guys played Nuke and you started on the CT side and you won the game 16-5. I know that doesn't happen much these days, right, in terms of Nuke results. But if we just go back, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, it's more of a common thing. How does that factor in, like that maps could determine? Do you think it's just, yeah, well, you guys vetoed to that map or they picked that map, so that's just bad luck for you, that's how the round differences work out? Or do you think that people need to keep that in mind when they're knowing they're playing in these formats?
No, but it could be like, let's say it was the best of one scenario where I said,
Okay,
within 12, like in that case, you can just have 5 or 6 of the matches. You just choose the side, no knife, no coin flips. It's just like fair to everybody. At the same time, you start T on your map pick, so you kind of choose your own fate. So I don't think it's anything that anyone should be whining about, because if you're choosing a map, even if you start T, you're obviously confident that you can get rounds on that map. And also, you should be starting CT on their map pick, and unlucky if they picked us 2 against you or something like that. But at the same time, I think it's going to even out in the long term anyway. I think it's more about, like in this case, obviously going by points is the easiest, but after that, I think it's easier to just go by map differential or round differential, because eventually that shows who had the highest percentage of won rounds, and that will most likely, in most cases, have been the best teams with that amount of points. Of course, it won't always be like that, but at the same time, I think that's a fair and easy way, and everyone would understand it.
okay.
There was one system that Blast used that I kind of liked the premise of. I don't remember what the name was.
It was a
some
weird
German
name, wasn't it?
There was some German name that
The
I forgot.
Nerdstall? The Nerdstall?
Neustuttel, yeah, that's the one. And that basically once you get past the, well, obviously just people go through by points or whatever, as if you have the most points, you just go through from first place and blah blah blah. But when you get to those tiebreakers, basically like what decides is how you did against the best, like, I don't know how to explain it.
I don't know that I didn't. This was too
well,
confusing.
essentially, they would look at which teams you beat, right, and where they finished, and based on that, they would decide if you beat a better set of teams or lost to a worse set of teams than the other team that you tied with, essentially.
But shouldn't you also be rewarded for smashing a lower team? I don't think, like, if the other team struggled against that team, that's their problem.
I think, look, with this conversation, I think that there's 2 ways that it gets looked at here. And I think the way that you're looking at Snappi is the way that I look at it, in the sense of, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm definitely not trying to put words in your mouth here, but the way that I see it is, it's a round robin group, you play everybody. It doesn't matter, like, in terms of it. I know that it
shouldn't matter. Your result against one opponent shouldn't matter. It's the results against every opponent
overall
in
group.
That sense.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, I understand that Peter, and I understand the standpoint of Striker and Prof, or at least I think I do, is that certain matches at certain points don't mean as much as they should. But I also look at that and I think that that is at the fault of the competitor, and that is what the format of the tournament is. So it's like the FURIA Cloud9 result. I read fucking comments in that thread, that Reddit thread. I don't know why I do it to myself.
I mean,
Some guy...
it's not a few. It's just like a lot of people are saying this. So.
I know, but they were saying that FURIA was throwing. Now, I think that's so insane to think that FURIA would throw. First of all, if they just went from the angle of, oh, they didn't have as much to play for, so maybe they didn't prep as hard, I can see that argument. But at the same time, they've now put themselves in a situation where if they lose and everything else goes against them, they might not make it out of the groups, right?
No,
like
FURIA is already through. 100%.
Are they out?
Yeah, but that's also the problem with this, because in a scenario where every round matters, right? Every map matters. Like this is the problem with a match like this. FURIA won't give a fuck about this Cloud9 match because they are already through. If they win the next match, they're first, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So they won't, like, trust me, as a player, you also have to prioritize your time. So if they will obviously go into that match to win. They'll try their best when they're in the match, but they won't probably sit and watch 10 demos. They probably won't sit and talk about the counters to Cloud9. They probably won't do all this stuff because
they're probably watching Gambit demos already.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So that is why it would also be better having the other solution, because at that point every round matters.
Sure. No, and I think that the problem that's happened here is the camps on either side of this discussion of your version of having the round robin and the others, which are like, well, certain maps don't matter. Unfortunately, we found in this situation where the way it goes now, correct me if I'm wrong, Striker, because you've had to look at this intimately. The head-to-head is when the teams are tied on points. The first thing it ranks is points, and then if they're tied on points, then it's like the mini group, right? And that's where it's like, okay, who has the most points versus who, and whatever like that. That's where it takes what Snappi's saying, the importance of every game out, and then it's only the importance of the games that mattered. But if we had it the way Snappi's saying, every game matters, unless you're already eliminated, and well, then you, like, for some of these teams, they're just playing for pride.
I don't even think that the rules that we have say that this game mattered or not. It's just like we're trying to break a tie, and then we come up with things that kind of make sense in order of how we value things. And we value, if I beat you and we were tied, then I need to go through. And that's like simple. Yeah, that's like a simple logic that we have. But then we have like, oh, if there are three ties, then we make this mini group, right?
Yeah.
I think overall, none of these things actually solve the biggest issue, which is that FURIA didn't give a fuck about this game. And maybe Snappy's solution does, but nothing that we had so far would change the fact that that game did not matter for them, so they don't need to try hard, right?
But I mean, even in the solution that Snappi offered, you will still be able to get to a position where you don't have
doesn't matter if you lose a lot of rounds. Yeah,
like you're already so far ahead that you don't really give a shit about the last match, and so you're still going to have those situations where one team. That's the worst part, I think, for me, that one team doesn't care. If both teams don't care, I don't give a shit. Like, okay, just ignore that match. Doesn't matter. Like, it whatever. Doesn't matter, right? But if one team cares and the other one doesn't, that means that if that match happened earlier or at a different time, both teams would have mattered and the result would have been different, right? Or could have been different.
Could have been different. That's the thing. Like,
we never know.
Yeah, and that's the other problem here is we would never know. Now, for me, I think the solution to all of this, because I think round robin. I think round robin is great. I like the fact that we got to see.
It's good on paper.
All the new teams.
No, it's fine. It's the rules that are stupid.
I think we have the blast format, which is GSL groups with the grand final that they pose as the biggest thing in the world for their group games. That means nothing. Like, who are they? Whose fucking eyes are they trying to trick here with that? Like, they pretend that grand final is huge. It's just a group game, and it's a literal game that means nothing. There's another one that means nothing. It's like, we have the format with the ESL events where it's the 8-team bracket, right? Well, every game there matters because it's a double in bracket. But I want there to be differences in events. I want there to be able to be, when I can see Snappy's team go up against everybody. They do good against some, they don't do good against everybody. I want to be able to see that, because I'm fed up of seeing these events where a team just gets through. They maybe get like an easy draw in the bracket. They win 2 best of 3s or a best of 1 and a best of 3, and then they're in the fucking playoffs. Like, I want teams to get put through their paces. I think stylistically it's cool. Player-wise it's cool. Yeah?
There's another thing that's a big problem, in my opinion, with this ESL Pro League. That's the fact that obviously round robin decides a lot. And in the case tomorrow, you could have FURIA beating Gambit by a close margin, placing first in the groups and then going straight to top 6, which is, in my opinion, one of the bigger problems, because not only is, as I said, group C and D especially vastly different, but it also makes such a huge difference to who goes further in the tournament. Because if you go and play second or third, and let's say in Gambit, like whatever, let's say there's probably a difference between ending third in this group C and ending third in group D. At that point, a team like FURIA might go to top 6 already, potentially even top 4 with one win, I think. And also, like, even if they lose, they still are top 6 and have another match. And I think it's just too big of difference between ending on such a high spot in the tournament. I think it's fine that the first team gets further, but in this case, they could just make it so that number 2 and 3 are playing number 2 and 3. Everyone is top 12, and then all the first place teams are top 8, so they await in the quarterfinals, and you play best of 3, and then at that point you can do both lower, upper, or you can just play single elimination straight up. But I think it's too big of an advantage when you decide to do round robin like this. That is, if you go through on a tiebreaker, like it could be tomorrow with FURIA and Gambit, then suddenly you're already top 6. And I just think that is the major flaw in this Pro League format for this tournament.
I think, isn't it second and third play each other in the playoffs round one?
Yeah, but obviously the first one just skips 3 rounds.
Yeah,
right?
but I think the thing is, like, there's 8 teams coming through for second and third, and only 2 teams go through to top 6. I think
4.
4.
Yes. That's the first team from every group, and then the first place play each other for either a top 4 or a top 6. You know.
Because what happens is playoffs round 1 is 8 teams. That's second and third from every group, and then the winners of those, you only have one life. The winners of those go into the top.
Then they have to play again to place top 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which means you have to win 2 games to even face the losers of the first places, right? Which is a major advantage, too big of an advantage, way too big, especially in a round robin format. So that's the biggest problem to me. It's not even the round robin; it's just the fan. I kind of feel a bit the same with the normal GSL Pro League that they make, where I think they go straight to the semis or something like. I can't remember how it is, and especially for a top team, then you get in the first match you face an Asian team, then suddenly in the other match there was an upset, then suddenly a top 6 by beating Lu and I don't know, some random top 20 team. And obviously I'm not saying that's easy to do, but I'm just saying that doesn't necessarily reflect that you are a top 6 team in the tournament. And I think especially here in Pro League, it's just way too big an advantage to end first, especially when it's round robin.
Yeah, I mean, you could get to a position where you end up first on fucking round difference, by like 2 rounds, and you end up 3 rounds ahead of the other team, So that's definitely like a situation that I would want to see, just because obviously, like, you didn't really prove that you are literally twice as good as the other team, or whatever.
Yeah, but I think that's my point. Like, I think it's bullshit that a team like FURIA can potentially end top 4, top 6 tomorrow, and then I'm not even sure that they would have made it out of Group D.
Sure. Yeah, then that's the thing right there. I don't know how Team 1, MIBR, and FURIA, not FURIA, Cloud9.
But the point still stands that they shouldn't go that far by placing first in a group.
I get what you're saying. All right. Look, I think the solution here is we just do 24 team, round robin. It takes fucking 6 months, but we get to see everybody playing everybody.
And please make the open qualifier for that also all best of 3. So
you
can play one tournament a year.
Yeah, and we want it all to be best of 3s. We don't want it. It's fucking hell. Anyway, let's jump on into talking a little bit about the group. We'll start with Group B, and then we'll get this through, and then we've got the playtime stuff. We have to get to that because we got some questions for Snappi. We've also got a sponsor segment we need to do. So let's smash through this. Snappi, let's throw this one at you. Vitality, are they in trouble?
If ZywOo don't turn into God mode, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you about this one then. What do you think about them letting Navira go, or Navira choosing to bench? Either way, no matter how you post that, do you think they should have held on to Navira?
I don't know. I think obviously he was looking good from the outside, but I don't know how he was to play with. I still think Vitality is a good team. I'm not too worried about them, but at the same time, I also think it's a team that I think ZywOo has such a big influence on that team, and I think they really need him in top form. And they had him in top form for 2 years. I'm not saying he's bad now. He's probably still better than everyone but s1mple. But at the same time, right? Just such a sick player.
With those two names mentioned, who needs who more? Does Navi need s1mple to perform at his not highest level, but at a high level more, or do Vitality need ZywOo to perform at his high level more?
Definitely Vitality, without a question in my mind, because I think there's more. I think the difference is, like, I've watched a lot of demos of both these teams when I've been facing them, and when I see ZywOo just jump out of apps, first guy, don't give a shit about dying. He just plays for the team every round. It's so obvious. Takes bad rolls all the time. Has nades and pistols, stuff like that. I just think it's a marvel that the fact that he's been able to post the same numbers at s1mple, and that's why I put him in a higher regard and I have him as my best player in the world. That's not said that s1mple isn't amazing. He's obviously absolutely nuts. But I just think I can't understand how he is that good with the way he plays. Like, it's just like watching a machine.
Okay. All right. That's a cool answer right there.
Good music to my ears for everyone that was complaining about the ZywOo #1, and still are, by the way. I asked, like, oh, do you have any questions on the Instagram of HLTV? Do you have any questions for the show? Why was ZywOo #1 in 2020? Simple.
I mean, there is an argument for both, but the thing is, when I see the way ZywOo plays, that is why, because ZywOo allows for more star players, in my opinion.
Okay. That's an interesting way to. Okay, all right. That's an interesting way to
Kind
look
of
at
funny
it.
considering he doesn't have a consistent one alongside him, while s1mple does.
Yeah.
No, but it's like a more. I think all of, like, there's not a bad player in Vitality, in my opinion. Like, all of them are good players. It's just that he's just so nuts.
All right, boys. What do you guys think? Striker, Prof, we got anything we want to talk about with the Vitality stuff here?
I wouldn't be super worried. Like Snappi said, it's also that it's super early into the change, and they've had to revert like 6 months back to like the original setting that they had on the map. You know, having to bring back shocks on Inferno.
Yeah.
And Masuda on Dust 2 and Vertigo, right? Or whatever it was. I managed to forget now.
Inferno, Dust 2, and he even played.
Was it Nuke at the end?
Yeah,
Nuke
the Vertigo one was just because Apex was
right
sidelined temporarily.
Right. But anyway, but you know what I mean. They've only just had to revert some of these players back into their roles, and they made those changes for some reason in the first place, right? They basically like introduced Nivera on Inferno just to, push ZywOo to B and get him off the op on Inferno just to fix their issues on the map.
Sure.
So it's a good card to have, right? Whenever you have a problem, you just put this guy in and problem solved.
Yeah.
ZywOo
definitely a good player to have, yeah. But I think there's still time for Vitality. I wouldn't judge them too harshly so far.
Also, what is it? Two tournaments like in close proximity. It's not like.
I think like before this group stage, we had that ZywOo watch to see if he's gonna be like struggling again at like 125 rating or whatever. But no, he popped off. So that's like my biggest worry for Vitality was that for him to be just like an amazing player, not like a phenomenal 1 in a million player.
And they're back at Blast pretty soon, right? That's the 13th of April. The showdown kicks off. They're going to be there in the thick of it with like Astralis and all the big names there. So that'll be interesting to see. We'll see how Vitality continue, but we'll keep it with you here, Prof. Now, Gambit, they've been looking bloody good. Well, okay, it didn't start super fantastic in Pro League, but as each game has gone, they've seen more and more convincing. Obviously, we had that Copenhagen Flames loss in Snow Sweet Snow, where maybe the limelight got to them a bit and they weren't as focused as they should have been. Now they're looking good. Is this the type of Gambit that you think? I'm not saying they're going to go and win tournament back to back, but are they here to stay?
I'll have to say that I took a few days off, so I didn't watch all of the games. Okay. I think I only watched the last one, which is a stomp of Team 1.
That's perfect.
That was nice, but I missed the Navi game. I think that was the most important one. Can someone tell me what happened there?
s1mple was sick, apparently, or is still sick. And s1mple had one of... Now, for a s1mple performance, right? I want to say this because I know that people take this out of context every single time, but for a s1mple level performance, it was not a simple level performance. The series for him was 0.91. That was his rating. I was on Overpass watching the game for, it felt like 20 rounds. He only had 5 kills. Like, he was just a non-factor for them. And to be fair, I couldn't tell that, like, you could tell s1mple was missing shots and not making as many plays and stuff as what he normally would be. But the utility usage of Gambit looked so good. Every time, like, he was flash and then he went to move, there was a molly, and then there's another flash and then he was dead. So, like, I didn't think, oh, s1mple's having an off day. I just said, oh my God, Gambit are fucking unreal. But then when we learned about electronic and we learned about all this other shit that's been going on, then you add that context so it looks a bit different. But the cool thing with Gambit that I noted over these days is Hobbit has a great day. Axial has a great day. Shiro has a great day. Like, Nafany is fucking sick. Apparently, Gambit, like, Nafany is like one of the best in-game leaders in the world with the fragging output that he's having right now. It's wild. Like, they look like the full package at this point. So yeah, if I'm obviously I've had to cast those games. I'm quite intimate with them. They look like they're here. Snappi, what do you think? Do you think they're legit? They're going to be here to stay at the top?
It's always hard to answer how they will play on LAN, but like, judging from how they play, the play style, everything, they just look like an absolute top team, right? So for now, they are definitely here to stay, and I think there's a lot of question marks regarding a lot of teams after the online era that needs to be answered. But obviously nobody's cheating. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there is a difference between certain players, like on LAN. A guy like Esperanto that I played with, I think he was one of the guys who probably suffered the most from not playing on LAN, because he's just absolute. Like, he's just a beast there, right? Every single time. So obviously everyone has to pass the test there, but I also think they kind of got an easier way to do that now, because since they've been winning a lot online, they're going to be in the Tier 1 tournaments when we eventually get there. A chance they might not have had, if not, because then they would have to go through the playoffs, whatever, group stage at LAN, be nervous. They know it's a one shot, right? Because as a Tier 2 team, you don't get many shots, trust me. So when you have them, you need to take them. And I think a lot of the teams are going to pass the test on LAN. And I think Gambit is sitting like boot camp, so like most of the games they play. So I think most likely they are going to pass it, right?
And I think this is just from what it looks like is going to happen for a lot of these teams. They are going to get like the best reintroduction to LAN ever. It's going to go from online to studio environment. It's going to be like, yeah, you're on LAN, but there's no crowd. Like, maybe there's a cameraman in your face. It's going to be one of the best ways to integrate for a lot of these players. This is like Christmas for these youngsters, I think. Like, they should be really licking their lips at these options. So we'll keep this one going. What Striker? I'm going to throw Cloud9 in your direction. You caught many of their games?
Yeah, I caught, I think three out of the 4 they played or something.
What are you thinking? You getting sold, or you think it's just what? Can you make anything of it?
Obviously, I mean, they've done well in every one. They just would like, the problem is with them so far. Literally, the one against FURIA was the first convincing series that I've seen from Cloud9. Yes. Like, I think ever even. Like, I don't think I've seen a better series from them so far. And
I think everyone would agree with that.
Is that because FURIA didn't really give a shit, and that was relatively apparent in the series? Could be, for sure. But at the same time, like, the moves that Cloud9 were making, like, yes, a lot of the time against FURIA, I mean, a lot of the time they were just confidence moves. They were just riding the momentum and stuff like that. Alex was like pushing outside on Nuke into not knowing anything really, and just getting all the right timings all the time and stuff like that. And that's not something that you can replicate all of the time. Obviously not. But I think it's still a good sign going into the future, just because this is going to give them a little bit more confidence to make some of these moves a little bit more consistently.
Do you think this opens the floodgates here, Prof? Like, I know you said you took a couple of days off. It's all good. But in terms of the confidence of the team, do you think this opens the floodgates to more victories now? Yes.
I also saw like good team play in this. Of course, it's still a FURIA game, but whatever. I saw good team play from Cloud9 when originally that was one of our biggest issues with them. They looked kind of disconnected. Yep. It really looked like they knew what they were doing, pulling off these like last second retakes, diffuses, stuff like that. So from that perspective, I feel like it is a step in the right direction. I don't think it's just like a random fluke game. FURIA, everything aside, is still a pretty good, individually a strong team. So you can't really just stomp them doing nothing randomly, right? It's not a fully random win from Cloud9 here.
Sure. I want to throw this one to you here, Snappi. In terms of s1mple doing the primary AWPing, how does that make you feel? Do you think it's going to work out for s1mple? Do you think this is just a short-term thing? What do you make of Cloud9?
It's tough to say. I think I need to see a bit more, and as Striker said, I think I need to see them also against a team that's not FURIA in a match like this. And I think I need to see it a bit more consistently. But yeah, for s1mple, I think he's like kind of a jack of all trades. He can do everything on a pretty good level. But I would say that if they're thinking about, I think s1mple can probably be, I don't know, like he can probably be a better rifler, I would think. I think if you can get like a superstar upper, you should probably go for him. But at that point, I also think s1mple would definitely say that's the way to go, and he would just transition into rifle, because I think he can do pretty much anything you ask him to. He's just a team player that will do whatever the team needs in that sense, and that's why most players always love to play with him.
What do you think with the whole him going to? Oh, we didn't even ask you about your short stint in Astralis. Jesus. What do you think with him when he did get that chance to play for Astralis and he popped off in a couple of events? I think it was the DreamHack Open Fall one where he was most notable, if I remember rightly. What do you think that was facilitated because the team was so good? He could just, because you're saying he's a good team player, that he could kind of fit into that groove and he didn't have to do all the dirty work because everyone on the team of Astralis knows how to do all those things? Or why do you think he popped off so much in that stint?
I don't know. I think he's just like, he's a good player within a system. I think he obviously, when you play with Astralis, you trust him a lot. And I think they just got Glaive back. I think the mood were high after a break. I think there was a lot of stuff that basically happened, and also him just being a good player. I think the Astralis guys was all kind of burned out when I was standing in for them, which was understandable. They lost 2 guys, right? And they were just like, what the hell is going on? But I think they were kind of eager to prove everyone. And I think s1mple, especially also when he got the chance to play with the best team in the world, was very eager to prove how good of a player he is. I think it was a lot of combinations factoring together. But I think he just needs a good consistent team, and he's always going to be a good player.
Good. All right, we'll keep it going. Let's move into.
I think just to close down this conversation about Cloud9, I think s1mple is never going to be a star opera, right? He's just going to be that kind of an opera who's just going to do his job, right? And he's not going to do much more, I think. At least that's basing that on what I'm seeing so far. I don't think he's been a particularly proficient opera. I don't know if he's going to get there, but I don't think so. So it's kind of going to put more pressure on the other guys, on people like a Floppy, like a Zepa and Mezzi, to step up.
I'm also not sure that he would be selfish enough.
Yeah,
that's also one of the reasons why he's such a good teammate, because he'll always die for you. And I think as an Orber, most Orbers are very selfish.
The change from having Alex doing the AWPing to s1mple, at least the thing I noticed with Cloud9 was when somebody needs to just go in and try and make that quick frag or two, Alex will take those. What I think we might just have to start coining them like in-game leader plays. Like, it's not even entry fragger plays anymore. It's just like in-game. It feels like every in-game leader is doing it now that I watch. Everyone's willing to make that sacrifice, that space. And sometimes it works, they get 2, it looks brilliant. Sometimes they die, they get traded. It works both ways. But he made those type of plays that were facilitating, Zepa and Floppy and Co to be coming on in. I think Zepa's actually looks really good in certain games. So there's Mezzi as well, and Overpass seems to be very proficient there. But yeah, Cloud9, bit of an interesting one. Tomorrow with all those bits and bobs that Striker was showing earlier, bits and pieces. We're going to work out who goes through the group. So tomorrow's going to be an interesting day for Pro League. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. This last one here is to do with Navi for Group C. Now, let's fill everybody in. So there was an interview with Flamey, and I love Flamey because he's so honest in interviews. I don't think they tell him what he should and shouldn't say. I think Flamey just gets to go out there and say whatever he wants, because he always says maybe a little bit too much. Or there's always something with Flavor. This time around, he's come out and he said that Electronic was doing a bit of in-game leading, and then he later clarified in that interview saying that was after. But later in that piece with Frankie, Flamey said, Electronic's been in-game leading on a couple of maps, and then he went to say just Mirage.
No, I mean, okay.
right?
Yeah,
Didn't he
I
say it
think
was just Mirage?
I think people misunderstood the first time where he
Okay.
said he was in game leading, and I thought at the time, okay, so I guess he's not anymore. He was just in game leading for a time,
Yeah.
and people just took it the wrong way and thought, okay, well, it's Electronic in game leading now, and then now we clarified. So I feel like it was a bit of a misunderstanding. Obviously, it could be like his English level and stuff like that is not, at the top notch. So
Well, it
there's
was
gonna be
in game
some,
leading the day before, so
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like regardless, it was like super, and they just lost to Gambit or what, and then they lost the day before to FURIA on Mirage as well. I think it was,
yeah.
and he was in game leading on both of those Mirage games. It doesn't really matter. The point here is s1mple was sick, didn't perform up to his standard. Electronic was apparently in game leading. We've got Bit taking over more maps now, like he's playing Mirage, Inferno, and Overpass now.
And
So,
changing positions on maps every day.
Yeah, you're right. They are too, because every single game I watch, someone's in a different CT sided position. Boomich, like a couple weeks ago, was trying A on Overpass. Now Bit's there with s1mple. Boomich is playing Anchor B. Electronic's playing Rotator. Like, I don't know what's going on with them. I don't think they know what's going on with them. And I think the thing is, because everybody holds Navi to such a high standard, to see them kind of floundering in a group that, Snappi, you're saying this one here should be pretty clear cut, or at least it should have been before this mess happened. Now we find ourselves in a position where we might not get Navi through to the playoffs. So dissecting this issue is a big one. And I want to keep with you here, Snappi, because you were talking about ZywOo before and the type of player he is for the team. Well, there's like a lot of people getting to the point now with this Navi roster. They have s1mple, the best player or one of the best players in the world, obviously top 2, and then Electronic, a top 5 player or top 10 player any given Sunday type of thing, and it's not working. If you were going into Navi and you could change things up, what would be the first thing you'd fix? I know it's a big problem and you're not in the server, but just from the outset looking in, like, is there any whack a snappy band-aid on it to fix it, make it feel better? Is there anything that you can see?
I don't know. Like, it's also hard because right now we're like sitting and dissecting a team and telling how bad they're doing when they're literally number 1 in the rankings,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But,
exactly.
I mean, I would say that one of the biggest things is, and I obviously have no clue how it is inside the Navi camp, but I think there just needs to be an authority where I don't know if people are pushing whoever is controlling stuff around, but I think they need to have someone to tell them to shut the fuck up and just do what is said, pretty much. I honestly, I really don't know how to fix it, because I have absolutely no clue how it is inside the Navi camp.
Sure.
But yeah, they obviously have one of the best players in the world and maybe the best player ever, and Electronic, so they should always be a big contender, and not going through from the group potentially would be a very, very bad result for a team like Navi, even if s1mple is sick.
Yeah,
I wonder if they made a premature decision on the Electronic calling just based on him getting like the worst s1mple that there has been in this year, probably. He plays his worst game. They get 0 rounds on the T side. Okay, Electronic, it's your fault, man. So it's just like, maybe they could have given him a little bit more time, but it's hard to say why they did it in the first place. So
yeah, I mean, it's also just like Navi could have communicated this whole thing a lot better. Like if they said, okay, we're now in a maybe transition period where we're going to try put Bit into more maps, this will probably not result in great result in like wins, or maybe some worse results in games, or we'll try Electronic calling. Even if they said s1mple is sick, doesn't matter. Stuff like that would like lower their expectations of everyone, because yes, they are the number 1 team in the world, so you expect them to go through this group, which isn't really that difficult, right? When you look at it, it's literally 4 teams almost playing for the 3 spots for the playoffs. I think most people look at it like that. No disrespect to Team 1 and MIBR. They just they didn't show anything close to beating the teams that are ahead of them. So yeah, I think they could just work on the PR a bit there, and that would help the case as well.
All right. Well, I don't know if we can dwell on Navi for too long here, because it's like beating a dead horse at this point. And as Snappi just said, they're the number 1 team in the world right now. So let's just chill. I think it'd be a bigger loss if we don't get to see them compete in the playoffs. That should be the cause for concern, not is the team fucked. All right, let's go into Group D. We'll make this one quite snappy. I didn't even mean to do that. Sorry, guys. Let's bring up that overview again, if you can, Lucas, for everybody playing at home. I'll
That's
link
too
it
quick
to
not
you.
to be intentional, man.
I'll link it to him again. And no, dude, there is no filter between the words that are coming out of my mouth and my brain. I don't know. I just fucking
automatic.
speak. It's just dumb at this point. So
Autopilot.
Group D for everybody playing at home and for all of our lovely audio listeners, it is Astralis, Liquid, Virtus Pro, Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, and Endpoint. Now, this is another group where on paper, in my mind, it's a very clear-cut top three and a very clear-cut bottom three. Now, I'm very interested to see what Endpoint have to offer. They've been battling for a chance to be in the big boys league for what feels like forever. So this is a proving ground for them. Fnatic are a team who I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to free fall down the rankings before Khan and co step in to change things. And then EG with this Obo change, Ethan change and Obo coming in, that's one where they're going to have to hit the ground running. Because I saw now HLTV, whether I didn't vet this. I didn't go and double check if it was their Steam profiles or whatever, but there was some people on HLTV who went into the Steam profiles of a couple of the players of EG.
Yeah.
And some of the players had less than 5 hours in the last 2 weeks. Now, I know they just traveled home, but that seems like an alarming sign, right?
That's a bit old, I think. That's at least a week old. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's like just updated, but I saw that at least a week ago. So
yeah.
But are they even in Europe yet?
But
that's the thing. Like,
let me check.
if they are in NA, obviously they won't be able to get any good practice.
Yeah, that was during their NA stay when they kind of didn't practice, but also Liquid
But are they
came
there
back
now?
and stuff like that. I think they arrived a bit back, like a couple of days ago.
Yeah, same as
I
Liquid.
saw something on Instagram that somebody was posting. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they've been back for at least at least 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, something like that.
So they haven't been back long. And their group starts in 2 days. So I look, Snappi, you know better than anybody. Do you think it's enough time to go from playing, maybe let's say 10 hours over 2 weeks to then playing hardcore for 4 days? Is that enough time to get you? Because the pros at this level shouldn't take too long, right?
I think if they just came back 2 days ago and they haven't practiced, I think they're just gonna bomb out. To be honest,
Okay.
I think it's enough time.
Completely agreed.
How long would you say is enough time?
It probably depends on how long they had a break, but obviously they also brought in a new player. I would say that they need at least probably a full good week of practice, and if they haven't had that, I think they'll get demolished by Astralis, VP, and Liquid. Yeah, I don't think they will stand a chance against teams like that. Obviously they could have a one-off, but I think they need to have the prep to be able to contend against them, because they would already be underdogs even before going into the match. So if they haven't been prepped well, I think it's trouble. But obviously I have no clue. It could be the case that they've been in Europe for a week without me knowing it and been practicing a lot. And in that case, we could definitely see EG past this group stage.
Yeah, I don't have 100% on that. I'll see if we can find out, but that might be for next week's show. Boys, do you guys disagree with that opinion from Snappi there? Anything we want to add with EG?
Completely fair, I think.
Yeah.
Also, just like if they actually did not practice, this could be all fake. Who knows?
Yeah,
but if they actually did not practice in NA after getting a new player, then I don't know what that says about the team. But that is something they can probably talk about in the pre-shows and stuff like that. So I'll probably get some information on that in the coming days.
Sure. The other one
we just given up on Fnatic.
We spoke a little bit about Fnatic before. If we're going to be honest with Fnatic, what is their last result? It was
Katowice. They lost to
2-0 loss to MIBR.
Yeah,
and a 16-9 loss to OG. As I wince.
Not great.
Not great.
But it's Fnatic. They could easily get out of the group if you ask me.
Yeah, it's not like they could definitely still do some damage in this group. Like they've been probably practicing a lot with the new guy Jaquinho, and I think Golden also mentioned some stuff about putting him in some more comfortable roles. And if they've been working on that, we could kind of see a new Fnatic, I guess. And it's hard for the other teams to also prep against them if that's the case.
Sure.
And if they're going into a best of 3 and they can kind of prep the opponent, but they can't do it vice versa, they might have an advantage there already.
So everyone knows what about Astralis. We want to make sure that they can bounce back with some good results. I think Liquid are going to be helped by the fact that Fallen's been in Europe this entire time, unable to get home because of visa stuff, right, or whatever the fuck it was. And then you've got VP in the mix here as well. who we all know we're just in the grand finals of Katowice. Do we have anything on endpoint, Snappi? Do you, because you mentioned Flames, right? Do you think that Flames with Robin, Surreal, Mighty Max, and Crucial around him could pull off an upset or sneak into one of those slots, or you think it's pretty much a hard lock?
I don't think they're gonna pass the group stage, but like I think there's a bigger chance that they are gonna steal one or two wins away than ending up 0-5. So like they're probably gonna win a game or two, but I don't think they're gonna pass. No.
All right. Okay, so the thing is, it's 9:57. We still have to get through a couple of other pieces. Snap, are you happy to hang around for an extra 10-15 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Wonderful. All right, boys, we happy if we jump into this playtime stuff now? All right,
let's go.
Let's go.
All right, we're gonna play the bumper. Lucas, roll it. All right, hot off the presses here, linking it to Lucas. He's going to bring this one up for everybody. Mad Lions, we had Kubin on the show last week to discuss what was the plans for the new roster. You heard from him that it was going to be a 6-man rotating situation. Seven-man rotating situation. They were going to have a lot of young blood in there, and they've announced the roster. TMB, we knew he was going to be there. He was the one who was there from the old Danish roster. Then they've added tudsoN. tudsoN, we spoke about him last time. He played in some Aces ROG thing with Henry a couple years ago, and then Henry bought him a PC, so he's Polish/British, a bit of an all-pro if I remember rightly. Waro2K, s1mple talked about him, see him in FPL all the time. Apparently has a VAC ban though, so that'll be a curious one. Is that anyone know if that's real?
It's been just a lot of like forum talk. I think he is cleared.
All right.
What I heard, he was cleared, so
that's good news.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Let's run with that. He's cleared, maybe. Asterisk. No one quote me. Keen from Latvia, another Latvian who can. I don't know. Anyone know anything about Keen?
He has he used to play in Volsung, which is the famous Latvian superstar team. So that's
okay. It. We've got another one coming in from Lithuania. JL. Another name I'm not familiar with. Anyone?
Played with Lithuanian players.
Okay, so they've really scouted deep for this. And a Spanish kid called tudsoN, and I think it's something to do with his last name. Another name I'm not familiar with. Apparently he's a substitute for Saw.
He was a sub for Saw. He played some games, but I guess he wasn't contracted, so he just joined this project.
Okay, so a lot of young names here. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with this. I think off the bat, for most people, these are not household names.
I'd say like the first three names are like kind of okay, like Waro2K, tudsoN, and TMB. Those are the kind of, you probably know about them.
Yep.
Played around, have some experience, ready for like the next step. And these other three are mostly like unknowns.
Okay. So that's the new Mad Lions roster. We'll see what happens with them. We'll see what they can get involved in. Another piece of news hot off the presses. Lucas, bring this one up, mate. Tell me when it's up. I love dead air. It's my favorite thing.
What are we bringing up?
We don't even know.
Wait, just wait.
Is it the...
All right, it's a public service announcement to everybody. Sorry for ever bringing Australian Counter-Strike to all of you, because mouz Sports have just lost 16-3 in a best-of-1 to PACT. And I know you all hate me because JKS is on Complexity too, and Renegades are pretty rough, and Extreme can't win a game either. So I don't know. I'm sorry that I brought this upon the rest of the world. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my intention. I didn't think this would happen. So I'm sorry.
Let's be real. Can this be Dexter's fault? Can this actually just be his fault?
No, it can't just be his fault that they're losing to fucking PACT. Rops only had 6 kills. Like, I'm not blaming Rops either. I'm just curious, what the fuck is going on at mouz Sports? Like, this hurts me to look at. Like, I genuinely sat there for a period of time when Carrigan had to make the choice between FaZe and mouz Sports and went, I can see a bunch of talent on mouz Sports that can be good. Like, did Carrigan literally do that much for this team? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, let's also be honest. Like, mouz Sports' last good result was Carrigan going like 135 rating in Summit. So A-Core in mouz Sports never really popped off. BMOS has not been super good for a super long while. So those are two things that maybe with Robs being Robs, Frozen being okay, and Carrion having like some tournaments of his life, we kind of Winston didn't really see that, but that has
I think it was overinflated.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the word, but let's just say there are problems there, obviously. And what Dexter needs to do is just like elevate those players to be better than they were before. But that is obviously not happening. So
sure. Okay. We won't dwell on this. Let's get into the fun stuff. Snappi, we have a new segment. Now, Prof, I would love if you could explain that to the viewer. It's from our new sponsor, Parry Match.
Yeah. So it's kind of a simple thing. It's like it's a matchmaker. So the concept is we have 5 names, and this episode is going to be 5 team names, and we'll have 5 descriptions. And Snappi needs to connect the names to the descriptions, what he finds, what he thinks. Right? There is no good, like, correct or incorrect answers. It's just like what he thinks, and maybe we can talk about it a bit. So it's like a conversational kind of fun game.
So we're matching. Hey, I get it now.
All right.
All right.
So I just click away now.
Yeah, we can see it with a link that Lucas just threw for us.
But just tell us what you're doing so we know what's happening.
The thought process.
Right, and I have to choose one for each team, right? So basically, you made me the bad guy. I have to choose the roster change, right?
Yeah, I mean,
All right. Okay. I'll choose best to watch for Heroic, mainly because like they have Hunden, they have a team of, I know some of them, like they have a lot of gimmicks, and I think you can obviously steal a lot of that stuff. So for me as an in-game leader, that's a good thing to watch. Then I'll choose
complete.
We'll win an event first, probably Astralis. I mean, they usually win a lot of events, right?
Okay.
High potential. I'll probably choose G2 just because of the fact that they have so many talented players, and we don't really know where this niko thing ends up yet. So yeah, let's see. And then out of necessity, I'll choose FaZe with questionable map pool.
Okay.
And that's not even because I think necessarily so, but I have to choose one, right? And also they're a new team, so maybe they don't know it themselves. And then I'll choose need a roster change to Navi. And again, you had to make me the bad guy. But like as you said, like if they're juggling around with an in-game leader, maybe they need to kind of not necessarily do a roster change, but at least like they also have 6 guys in the lineup, right? So maybe they have to consistently choose who's gonna lead and kind of give their full trust to him.
Okay.
Whoever it is, and even if they think that it's wrong, they still kind of have to stick to one guy, because if they run in different directions and don't trust one guy, it's not going to be better anyway. So yeah.
Navi is definitely the easiest one to put into the need a roster change, just because of the 6-man thing, because obviously they can't keep going with this, at least not in all events. So
sure. I like the Heroic best to watch one, and you were talking about like gimmicks and stuff that they do. Like when we're casting, we call them the fakey boys, because they're always doing some fake, or Cadian's off doing God knows what on the other side of the map, right? Making a lot of space. When you talk about like a lot of gimmicks and stuff, are you talking about like moves or like timings on things, or what specifically are you talking about when you say that?
Could be a new smoke or whatever. Like Stown has a lot of great plays. I think usually he's a very skilled player. So just some small moves, like the kind of moves that you kind of create together on a solo on a server, the kind of nerdy moves. So I don't have to sit there for 5 hours myself and find it.
What? Just curiously, because we are in playtime now, so we can just throw questions your way for a moment. We'll go to the viewer ones in a second. But do you use many tools to watch demos or prep for stuff? Like, because obviously Skybox is available. There's that rewind one that I see a lot of people using. There's refrag. Do you use any of these tools? Do you have any extra tools?
I use Shadow GG to prep opponents usually, because it's the fastest.
Yep.
Then we use Skybox to review. And I think we are also probably going to go into this ESL program and test it, where you can execute against, like, use your own execute to find the gaps. We're probably going to go into that, but it wasn't like a priority straight off the bat. But yeah, I'm using different tools to analyze stuff.
Do you think today, right? Because like we have so many different game modes that are available that people can practice with, like pre-fire maps, for example, or there's like the duels, right? Which is like you just have heads-up fights on maps, and it's really quick. It's better than a map. It's giving you situations you might actually play in. The refrag is a perfect example. Playing against your own execute. Like I remember you used to do dry runs, and you'd have the coach, or you'd have the B bomb site defenders sit there against your flashes to make sure they work. Like all these tools and stuff. How much, like, it's hard to quantify, but comparing what it used to be like to what it is now, is it not I don't, easy is not the right word, because you have to work hard. But if people wanted to, do you think, and not anybody, but you can fast track quite quickly now to being a top player with these tools? Does this help people a lot, or do you think that they're just like, yeah, they're pretty cool?
Probably helps, but at the end of the day, playing with other good teammates and playing deathmatch and reviewing demos is probably still the fastest way. The rest are kind of tools to perfect certain areas, but I'm not sure it's probably not the main thing, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. Do we want to jump into these questions now? Striker Prof, you got anything?
I just wanted to touch on when we were talking about like the questions that we had here, like need a roster change. I thought G2 was an obvious one here, just because of the opping situation. The Jax/Niko opping situation. Sure. And ENCE obviously played against G2. You beat them 2-1. So I wanted to ask you what you thought about like the Niko opping, because that's like a big talking point in the scene right now.
I think it's hard to say. I think he needs a bit more time to see if it can. Like everyone questioned when like s1mple has kind of half been an AWP, I would say, most of his career. But everyone questioned it's like he's better as a rifler. The same could be said for a guy like Device, like even ZywOo, I guess. Yes, he's such a skilled player, and if you get really, really good, you can probably have the most. Like the AWP is the best weapon in the game, in my opinion, but it also costs 4,750. So I don't think it's overpowered, but I think you obviously put more resources into the guy that is the AWP, right? And Niko is most likely in whatever team, unless he has s1mple or ZywOo as his teammate, probably the most skilled player in the team. And even then, some could probably even make an argument in that case. So it's I think it's a fun experiment to see if he can become just as impactful in the game as a guy like ZywOo or s1mple in terms of numbers, right? Because I think what he's doing on the rifle is something that the two other guys would have a hard time rivaling. So maybe, and he is a very capable AWPer. So I don't want to doom it just yet. I would like to see in like 2 or 3 months where it's at.
Cool. You got any follow up there, Striker Prof, on those questions, or anything in general?
There's one thing that we didn't really ask about in general with in the hot seat, which is just generally switching to an international lineup. You mentioned this a little bit at the start, switching over to at least what was initially meant to be the Tiger lineup after being with the Danish teams the entire career. So how has that been in terms of the transition? Because it's been about a year since you made that decision. So
I think it's not really. I think the main thing is that callouts, that is honestly one of the most annoying things, because it's so integrated into your brain. Small callouts, or you can just explain yourself really fast if you want something. But because I still think in Danish, and even though it's getting better day by day, like you still kind of have to translate in your brain what you're really saying. And that means that you might lose 1 second with a call, or like basically your words isn't coming out the way you really want them to when you are in a high pressure situation and you need to react fast to something. And that's probably the things where I think it is something you can overcome. But I also think for players who don't have the best English prior to coming into an international team, that is probably a thing that will never be fixed. Like they just can't fix it unless their English is pretty good.
I love it. That's Snappi. That's what I like to hear. I love it. It's so good. There's an ongoing bet between me and Striker and Pimp. I said something. I don't even know the rules. I should stop. We should. Someone go back and find the rules.
You'll just win after 5 years because no international team will do it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Basically, I said that no international team would be something like top 3 or some shit consistently for 6 months.
I don't think you're gonna win that one. To be fair,
well, I think we're almost 2 years in. We're almost 2 years. Surely we got to get close to
I
the
think
2
we're
year
about
mark.
2 year mark. Yeah.
So
I mean, we had mouz sports do it for like 4 months. You were like 2 months away from losing that bet.
and then we went all online, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I think like if you have, it doesn't matter that 1 or 2 players isn't perfect, but I think it's pretty important that the players who talk a lot and who make a lot of plans are at least pretty natural in English. And I think with time, like if you give people 5 years in a team, like if you give me 1 or 2 more years in an English speaking team, I'll literally think English. So
Sure.
at that point, it won't be a problem anymore. And the question is if I can bring a team to top 3, that's another question. But the thing is, like, I think you're gonna lose that one, Chad.
Yeah.
The more people like Kerrigan we're gonna get, and we're getting there because we're getting more and more European teams by the minute. Like
It's
the
stacking up
sooner we're
Striker
getting to the
is going to
position,
win this on a technicality. There's literally going to be like 28 international teams in the top 30. The top 2 are going to be like NAVI and Astralis, and the third one is going to be like Vitality International, and that's going to be it. That's very
Look at it right now. What do we got? We got complexity. We've
at
got
this point, it's a pretty rough look.
complexity, phase, FPX, mouz,
ENCE, I
OG,
think.
yeah, ENCE, Cloud9.
G2 is also kind of doing
G2
something.
doesn't count, unfortunately.
It's weird.
It's on the cusp. That one we might need a technicality. We might need a ruling on that one, but it is starting to get pretty stacked out there. Yeah, it's good.
I'm waiting for the day Robs gets on phase or something, and then we're gonna start talking. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Look.
We'll just forget about the bet until that happens. So
Yeah, I won't mention it again. I promise. I don't promise. All right, we got some of these viewer questions here. Did any tickle your fancy, Prof? There's a couple here that are nice.
Yeah, there was one from Maui Snake.
Sure.
He asked a peculiar question. He says, "How did Snappi come to his misdirection style win game leading? It is really unique."
I don't know what he's referring to, but I think it might be on maps like Train and Nuke, where I like to throw a lot of utility in order, like, and then have 5 or 6 different versions of it. So, like, it's a tactical heavy style, but at the same time, it's hard to read because the same thing is happening over and over again, and there's not like any pointers. And I kind of really try to make sure that they can't really like read what's coming next, because the moves that they will see is something that's consistent, right? And that's probably, and I think it's mostly down to maps like Train and Nuke. I don't think you can run it on maps like Overpass, Mirage, Dust 2, maps pretty much that are more default heavy, I would say, right? On Nuke you pretty much can't run a default. It's just not possible. Like the default is literally to throw a yard combination of some sort.
So how did you come to that? Like, where does it come from? You're a 1.6 player, right? But
yeah, I think I don't know. It's just something I kind of like. I guess at the start when we were beating a lot of teams back then, people were encountering as much, and then we would always do pretty good in heroic against the better teams, and we would win, especially on maps like Cobble and Nuke, where you could do a lot of that stuff, right? And then suddenly I kind of had to constantly keep thinking about what can we do so we don't get countered next match, right? And then I think it kind of evolved from there. So you kind of have to constantly think, okay, if we throw the normal yard smokes, we need a new version, because last time we did this and this, and last time we did so if they look 2 demos back, we need to be able to do this to throw them off their game, and then we can go back again, right? So they can never really know what's coming, and I think that's why it mainly works for maps like Cobble, Nuke, Train, maybe to some extent Inferno. But like most of the other maps, probably not even Inferno, you can't really run that style. But that's probably also why Train, Nuke, Cobble, and also Overpass, but that's not really why has been my stronger maps as a caller.
Okay. I had one here. now that you're doing this whole international leg of your career, is there any plan in the future to return to a Danish team, or is that something that, you know, when you're 40 and you want to go and, you know, play for a team of youngsters and you'll just in-game lead them as like a figurehead there or something? What's the thoughts on the Danish scene? Like, are you going to go back anytime soon?
I don't have any plans, to be honest. I will never say never, because right now I'm in ENCE. I just signed a contract. I'm very, very happy here. And my intention is to stay here as long as possible and as long as the team works. And hopefully that's going to be for a very, very long time. I think I kind of need a good stable period, like I had before with Heroic V1, like where I was there for like 2-3 years maybe.
Yep.
And I would like that to be the same now in ENCE. But after that, who knows what's next, right? I'm also 30, turning 31, so there's probably also a point where I can't go for much longer, but at the same time, I still think that isn't really explored yet, and especially for in-game leaders who can kind of have probably longer lasting time, just like goalkeepers in football or whatever, right?
Sure. I was just going through these questions here, Prof. A lot of them we already had answered, right?
Yeah.
Like there was one about Saw. I think we spoke about him a bit already. The Spinx one was answered. I guess I don't mind the one here about the 6-man roster situation. I would like to hear your take on that. Wait, Prof, what is that guy's name? I don't want to say it wrong. Armor Potent?
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's name. He said, thoughts on a 6-man roster with teams going away from it with the new ruling, so the Vitality and Reverse situation. As a follow-up, what are Snappy's thoughts? Oh, don't worry about that. We'll just use the first bit of the question. The 6-man roster, what do you think about that? Do you think this is something that will come into Counter-Strike more even with the Valve's rulings? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? Where do you land on that?
I don't think 6-man rosters is anything that's going to work long-term. I think long-term it's going to be 10-man rosters because what you would need is one guy for each position. So he could kind of be on the practice server half the time, maybe see how the team plays, still be in on the tactics, know the exact same roles, but obviously play it differently. And then also they could kind of practice on their own, like in football you have like the first team, the second team, like they practice together and stuff like that. I think in order for it to work you need 10 man, and until there is more economy, I think it's a matter of like players obviously want more salary, which is natural, but at one point there's going to be so much money eventually when it grows bigger, hopefully like a football, that it really doesn't matter, and at that point people are going to be fighting for the starting spots in the team. So I think until we have 10-man rosters, I don't see it working long term.
Okay, cool. All right, boys, it's 10:20. Do we have anything else for Snappy? This has been really good. We're getting everything out of Snappy here tonight.
Yeah. I think we could go on for like 2 hours more easily. We just like open up the ranking discussion a bit more and stuff like that. But maybe for a special show we can do that.
Sure. All right. Well, let's close her down. Strike, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right, cool. So Snappy, right now, floors to you, mate. Whatever you want to say, your fans, people out there, maybe you hate someone on the internet. Like I always want when I say that for someone, just kind of go, fuck that guy. But seriously, is there anything you want to say? Go nuts. Now's your time.
No, like I just want to say thank you to my teammates, coach, and the ENCE organization for believing in me. It's really made my 2021 so far. So thanks for them. Thanks to Red Bull, and thanks to all the Finnish fans that are hopefully crawling back to us. And let's hope we make Finland proud.
Beautiful. All right, that's the way to end it. Once again, for everybody out there, HLTV Confirmed listeners, viewers, etc., maybe you joined the show halfway through and you want to watch the VOD, it'll be up in 24 to 48 hours. Lucas has been killing it lately, normally 24. Anchor.fm/HLTV for the audio-only options if you want to listen on Spotify. Maybe you love the old iPod. They still iPods a thing. Anyway, Google Podcasts, all that shit. Anyway, you can find that there. Thanks again to the sponsors, Xtrfy and Parry Match. Still hope I'm saying that right. Someone will correct me once upon a time. And next show will be on Tuesday the 30th after the groups have concluded for Pro League, just before we get underway with some of those playoff games. So that'll be CET, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets guaranteed.
Headshot, nice. Fist bumps go to the teammates.